Okay, it says I'm live. Let me see if I am. If you can hear me, let me know that you can hear me. I always like to start that way because if you can't hear me, then I end up just talking to myself for 15 minutes. So it says I'm live here. There we go. I can be heard. Okay, so on this session, it's about level 1. You're free to ask me any question you want about the process for level 1, what to expect with level 1. And if I have the answers, I'll answer it. So let's see what we have here. Willing to answer questions about level 3. I have a level 3 session, I think, within the next week. It might even be next Sunday, but there is a separate level 3 session coming. So I would recommend that one. Thoughts on Bloomberg surveillance? Okay, well, not level 1 related, but do you watch it every day? I find the different views shared by the economists and asset managers to be interesting, especially related to CME. Any other shows? I don't really watch it every day. Sometimes, well, it depends on what's going on. Sometimes it's on, and it's usually on in the background. So while I'm doing other things, it happens to be on, but I'm not sitting there watching it the whole time unless there's an interesting guest on, or unless there's something significant going on. Other than that, it's just on in the background, and sometimes you hear things and you pay attention for a few minutes and it disappears. But no, I don't really watch too many other things. We'll start passing around a collection plate, collection, not to buy Jerome Powell and iPad. Yeah, somebody in the comments identified it as a 2017 12.9-inch iPad. 2017 would seem to me, head of the Federal Reserve, it set him up with the latest one, right? Debating between February 24 and May 24 test dates. I haven't started studying, but I'm about to sign up for your course. I work 40 hours a week. Is February reasonable? You have to think. I mean, we're mid-September now, and the exams, I believe, start mid-February, which is a decent amount of time. But when you say you work 40 hours a week, that doesn't tell me anything about your social life, your family life, other obligations you have. Keep in mind, you've got Christmas coming up, so how much time do you give up there? Do you have family? What I find is people don't plan for life. Life is that unexpected stuff that just shows up. It just happens, right? So you think, well, I got 5 months. If I do 12 hours a week, 15 hours a week, I think I can do it in 5 months. And life shows up and throws you off your plans. So I always seem to think that it's better to have more time than less time. I believe registration for February 24 opened up in mid-May. And if you had asked that question at that time, I would have said, yeah, you have plenty of time, but don't fall into the trap of thinking I've got so much time I can wait. At this point, if you got 40 hours a week, I would tend to lean to May as opposed to February, unless you don't really have a lot of obligations in terms of wife, kids, family, things like that, and you can actually put in, 2 hours a night, 1 to 2 hours a night, which I don't think is unrealistic to that time, then sure. If you have always been a good student, if learning comes easy to you, if you've always, sort of pulled off A's in your undergrad without really having to dig for it, then sure. But if you had to, really put in the time and work hard and hitting a B-, you probably need more time to learn the same stuff. So part of it is a function of the lifestyle that you have. The other is a function of the capacity the cognitive capacity that you have to get it done as well. So, I would weigh the two together, and go from there. I myself, I'll just give you an example. I've always found stuff like this when it comes to accounting, economics, quant, anything numbers related to me was second nature. I mean, I can read a math book, and get it as I read along. It's always just numbers were always a gift to me that way. I'm not married. I have no kids. I have no family obligations. Somebody like me, I could do February, only because the topics, for me, even when I was new to them, those kind of topics for me were second nature. It just picked it up easily, and being that I have no other obligations, I would do February. But again, take that as a high benchmark. How was the Costa Rica trip? Costa Rica was great. I was overwhelmed with the development of what I saw. When I say the development, I was expecting something a little bit more, not third worldish, but something a little more in line with what you hear about when you think about Central America, right? I was impressed with it. I was impressed with the absolute friendliness of everyone, almost no anger anywhere, which is, contrast that with driving on highways in just around the Toronto area. It's just, you get flipped off at least once a day, and no anger. The traffic wasn't the best, but no anger. You can get by with English, but Spanish is something you would have to learn. And it was, it was nice. Panama, I spent a week in Panama. Temperature is muggier. Humidity is significantly higher. There's almost no humidity in Costa Rica. When you walk into the shade, it's shade. The temperature goes down. And it's a constant all year round. If you look at the temperature, lows of 18, 19, high of 25, 26, all year long. Panama was an angrier city, much angrier, just based on how people were driving. In Costa Rica, no one hit me up for money. Walked the streets, there was nobody begging for money. Panama, it was quite a bit of it in Panama City. And they don't ask you for money. They yell at you for money. They yell at you. So I didn't like the temperature. It was a city. I mean, what I just explained, you'd get in any large city, by the way. I was just impressed how Costa Rica was lacking a lot of that. But I would say that Panama, to me, is a city of humidity and really tight jeans, regardless if you're a man or a woman, and regardless of your size. In that humidity, skin tight jeans on everyone, like jeans that are like 2 sizes too small. If anyone's ever been to Panama City, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Doesn't matter what size you are, skin tight jeans all the way down to your ankles. That was amazing. I just looked around, thought, this is crazy. But Costa Rica was pretty good. Okay, I lost the questions there. Let me scroll back up. Back from Panama, Costa Rica, will you go to the UAE? No, I've made a purchase decision in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, is like in San Jose, there are different, like every city has different, I don't know what you call them, boroughs or neighborhoods or whatever. The one that I chose is called Escazú, which is a more upscale area of San Jose. So I did buy a house. So I'm done. I when I got there, I thought, well, how am I going to get better than this? How am I going to get better than what I'm seeing here? And Dubai, from what I hear in July, August, with the 40-some degree temperature, I'm good. Besides, if you look at property prices in Dubai, they've been going straight up. Costa Rica is still a buyer's market. I'm taking a test in November, wrapping up macro and then ethics, and I'm done with the material. Any advice on revision? Revision strategies and practice tests. So it's quite common, especially with something this big. It's quite common that when you go into revision, you'll feel that you forgot everything, because you may have started with quant 3 months ago, and then you moved from section to section to section to section, and you didn't have a revision strategy where every couple of weeks you revised, and then you went on, then every couple of weeks you revised. So when you start revising, you may feel discouraged saying, I've forgotten everything. You remember faster than you learn. So if you forgot something, once you start, you just go to the book, you read a couple of sentences, you start looking at an example, it'll come back to you. You'll remember it and you'll say, oh, okay. Try not to panic or get stressed out when you're revising and you're saying, I've forgotten all of this stuff. I knew it, now I forgot. It'll come back to you. It'll come back to you. Don't worry about it. Practice test, yeah, I would recommend that. Now CFAI does have the 6-pack, right? The 6-pack of exams. They're going to dig you for some more money there. I think it's $299. They're going to dig you for some more money, but if you're looking for more exams, you can find those. I'm told that the exam pack they have are written by the same writers that write for the exam. In fact, it works this way, at least I'm relating to you what I've been told, is that a writer doesn't know where their questions are going. So they're writing them all for the exam. Some will end up on the exam, some will not. But they're all written to the same standard to be on the exam, and that's what's in the exam pack. I would seem to think that is, if you're looking to buy more mock exams, if you're looking to buy more, I would seem to think that would be the least risky set of exams to buy, right? As far as ethics goes, narrative, it is sometimes not intuitive, where you read something and you think, well, why would it be this way or why would it be that way? And unless you work with ethics all the time, it's hard to really, I think, get your head around it. There are some parts of it, some things I read and I think, but like, why is that a standard? And you really have to think, my back hurts. So just give me a second here. You really have to think through why something's a standard. To me, ethics is a memorization game. And because it's memorization, it's going to sit in short-term memory, not long-term memory, which means you want to put it in your short-term memory as close to the exam as possible, because short-term memory has a fast decay rate. So I think as you're revising, leave ethics to like the last 2 weeks or as close to the exam as you can that you feel comfortable with, and then do your memorization on that at that point, because it's, like I say, it's really a lot of narration. It's not like there's something that you have to figure out. It's not like quant or fixed income where there's a formula and you got to get your head around the formula. And once you do, you got it. It's just a list of stuff. Taking level 1 exam in February. How much time should I leave for the reviewing period? I think 30 days is a good period of time. 4 weeks is a good period of time. Do a half an exam. Half exam is just, you have, when you write the real exam, you have session 1, session 2. So write a half exam every 2 days and review what's where you got things wrong. Go to those sections, read that, do the next half one, and then, of course, spend the next day reviewing where you got it wrong. Also, make sure that when you're reviewing your mock exams, after you're done grading them and you get your answers, the tendency is to look at what you got wrong and to review why you got that wrong and try to learn from that. Let's not forget that sometimes you can get questions right for the wrong reason. You just got lucky. So make sure on the questions that you got right, you got them right for the wrong reason, and you don't have this false sense of knowledge saying, well, I got all of those right, I must know that stuff. Because out of 3 choices, you may say, oh, I know it's B because of this. And you might have been right in knowing it was B, but not because of what you thought it was, but because of something totally different, that if the question were given to you in a different way, you might not get it right. So it's important also to review what you got right and make sure you got it right for the right reasons. Working full time, done 73% of your content. 73, not 72 or 74, 73. What is the best way to review L1? My exam is November 14th. Well, we're September 21. I don't think you really have to worry about review for about another 3 weeks, October 14th, I think. The best way to review is, I want you to think about your undergrad career. I mean, you've been through at least the first 2 years. I'm going to guess maybe even more. You're no stranger to midterms and finals. I'm pretty sure of that. And there are, I think, enough history behind you to sort of say, well, I did good on these exams. I didn't do so good on these exams. What did you do for the ones that you were good at? Do that. Now, it's going to be different for different people, depending on what your best study method is. But I would seem to think that you could rely on a little bit of personal history here and say, well, listen, when I've done well on an exam, it's because of these 2 or 3 things. Do that, and that will be right for you in this context. I got level 1 exam February, so 5 months away. I just started preparing. What would you suggest on studying schedule and timelines? Well, you got 5 months. You really have 4 months, because 1 month is review. So you got 120 days. The average of people who pass the exam, the average study time based on surveys is 300 hours. So if you got 120 days before you start your review, 300 hours, you're 2.5 hours a day, which seems like a long time, but when you start, that goes by fairly quickly. So yeah, you got about 2.5 hours a day. When you break it down in that respect, it gives you some kind of context in which to view things in, to say, well, I think I have 5 months, but I really have 4 because I got a review for a month. I got 4 months. Well, 4 months sounds good. Let's put it in days. I got 120 days to do 300 hours. Suddenly you start saying, well, that's 2.5 hours a day. Whoa, I thought I had 5 months, right? Suddenly it's 2.5 hours a day, 17.5 hours a week. So 15 to 20 hours a week, if you got time for that. Yeah. And it's also a function of the novelty of the topics. For many candidates, they come to this with a business background, a business school background. So they've taken a micro and a macroeconomics. At least by your second year, you've got a macro and micro behind you. You've got at least an introduction to accounting behind you. Maybe not intermediate, but at least introduction to accounting. You might have had an introduction to finance at that point. Probably your stats course, I think, is second year. Usually you get your stats course. You might have seen quite a few of the topics anyways. And if you have, you might not need as much time. You might say, well, I only need 200 hours, not 3. But if the topics are new to you, you might need 400 hours. So 120 days, 400 hours. Suddenly now you're talking about a little over 3 hours a day. Now, can you tell us more about the other guy making videos for your level 1 content? He's a great teacher too, by the way. I got up at 4 a.m. to watch live. Greetings from Poland. His name's Richie. I haven't had a chance to review too much there. He's knowledgeable. He's been doing this for a long time. I've heard nothing negative about him at all. I've listened in on a few of his Q&A sessions when he does office hours. As the questions come in, he answers them. I don't think there was a time where a question came in where he said, well, I really don't know that one. So he's knowledgeable. He's a charter holder. He's been doing this for years. He's got the nice English accent, which a lot of people find soothing and relaxing. So you've got all of that. And I've not heard a negative thing. No, so, I think you're in good hands there. I don't know what you mean by tell me more about the other guy. If you had very specific questions, I might be able to answer that. Are students more likely to pass level 2 if they start studying immediately after taking level 1? Or does the 6-month break not have no impact? I don't know the answer to that. That's information that we don't track. We wouldn't know if somebody has taken 6-month break, 12-month break, 3-month break. We wouldn't know that. So it's that's just difficult to answer. I don't know if they're more likely to pass as a function of, okay, I finished this, let me do the next one, or let me take a break. I think a good way to answer that would be, would you be more likely to have a higher grade point average in university if you took the first year, then took a year off, then went back for your second year, then took a year off, then went back for your third year, then took a year off? Or would you continually lose momentum, right? Would the span of time be so long that the stuff that you needed in your prerequisites, let's say introduction to accounting, to understand intermediate accounting, would it have decayed so much that you'd have to continually go back and review? I don't think this is like a gym where, you're working out and then you plateau, and when you plateau, that means you're not making any gains. Typically, the best way to get gains is to take 2 weeks off, because you may have a body that can't grow working out every day. Maybe your best recovery is 3-4 days a week. If you take 2 weeks off, you come back, you start a little lower, but then you can usually break through those plateaus. I don't think learning is like that. I think it's probably better to build on your gains when you have your gains, as opposed to letting it go for a while. Because I know that there have been some topics where I can remember in my PhD time, there's some quant topics that require deep dives. And if you left it for a couple of weeks and came back, there's little nuance and subtleties that you've lost. That you in the moment you got them and you said, okay, it all fits together. I see it. And if you don't continue pushing into it, you lose the subtlety. It never finds its way into muscle memory, into long-term memory. So I think there's something to be said for keeping the momentum going, so that it doesn't decay, that whatever knowledge you have stays there and doesn't decay. However, I will say this: after I finished my PhD, I couldn't read another paper, another book. About 2-3 years, I was so sick of reading. I was so burnt out, because you read a lot, because you got to get caught up with the literature, right? You read a lot. I was so sick of reading. I didn't want to read another book, a news. I didn't want to read anything. So yeah, I needed to move away from that for a couple of years and say, I can't even look at this stuff anymore. I needed a break because I was burnt out. So if you feel burnt out, take a break. But if you don't feel burnt out, if you say, well, let me just take a break, just for good measure, I don't know about that. In the same boat, 70% cover. We'll take L2. We'll take 2 weeks off for review, saying November 11th. Okay. Maximum number of mock exams that you recommend for level 1. Minimum, I'd say 3. Maximum, years ago, when I say years ago, because I don't really track this information anymore, I was looking at our average scores on mock exams, and when we there was a period of time where you couldn't take the second one till you did the first one, and you couldn't take the third till you did the second, and we found that for level 1 and level 2, performance dropped off after 3. That 1, 2, 3, and then the average kind of dropped after that, but not for level 3. Level 1 and 2, after 3, it sort of dropped down a bit. And I don't know if that was just because of burnout or diminishing returns to studying. Because after a while, I mean, when you're at 88%, getting to 89 takes a lot of time. When you're at 70, getting to 71 might take 2 hours of review. But 88 to 89 might take 6 hours to get that extra mark. And the higher you go, the longer and longer and more intense the studying comes to get each incremental mark. So it might have been diminishing returns to studying. As far as a maximum, I don't know that I would put a maximum on it saying, don't go past this. But I would say that your first 3 probably is your highest return in terms of incremental improvement. The first 3 would be the highest return. So at least 3. Do at least 3, right? Could you please take Trudeau and Jagmeet and drop them off on some deserted island? Well, I'm leaving Canada, so the best outcome for me is to leave them right here. They're your problem. They're your problem now. They're not my problem. But you're preaching to the choir here. We have 2 prime ministers that really don't know what they're doing. And this whole thing with India that they're starting now, to me, seems like a hill that I just don't know that you really want to die on. If I were talking to Junior there, I'd say, look, do you really want to die on this hill? I mean, but there it is, right? Minimum finance background. How much time do you think I should study to truly learn and understand all the topics? Your background is not relevant, okay? It is your ability to learn. If you have a high ability to learn, it wouldn't matter what I give you, you'll learn it, right? When you went to university and you took courses, you didn't know it before. It was all new. You didn't have that background when you took this course and that course and this course, and how did you do? That tells you or gives you an idea of 2 things, and it's hard to pull apart. It gives you an idea of your ability to learn, which is called intelligence. The higher the level of your intelligence, it means that you can learn. Knowing stuff is not intelligence. That's just knowing stuff. People who are good at Trivial Pursuit just know a lot of shit. That doesn't mean they're intelligent. Intelligence is the speed at which you can learn new things. So if you come to new topics and you learn them quickly, it does not matter what your background is. If it takes time to learn things, even with a finance background, you might struggle more than somebody that can learn quickly with no finance background. So yes, I'd say there is some familiarity with the topic, that if you have some familiarity with it, it may come easier to you than if you don't. But if you score high on an intelligence level, meaning that you learn easily, you learn new things easily, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the target that you're learning is. How much money can I make once I pass the CFA? As much as you can dream. I don't know that is the correct phrasing of the question. I think a more correct phrasing is what should I expect the market to be like once you have a charter? So this is sort of an interesting question. Is what makes you worth something? To get the charter, you need the work experience. You need the 3 exams and you need the work experience. Which one is more important? I'm going to say the work experience by far is more important to determine what your worth is than passing 3 exams. So if you give me somebody who's passed 3 exams but has no work experience, they can't get the 3 letters. The difference between the 3 letters and somebody who's passed 3 exams is the work experience. You're worth far less having passed 3 exams than you are with the 3 letters, and that gap is the experience. Nothing beats experience. So you're worth your experience combined with your performance. I mean, simply showing up to a job for 3 years is not experience. It means you just showed up for 3 years. If you didn't learn anything, well, it's not experience, right? So I think that your earnings potential is a function of your experience and your performance during that experience time. But you can't get the 3 letters without passing the 3 exams and getting the experience. And if I had to pick 3 exams or experience, if I had to hire somebody, let's say I had to hire somebody who had 3 exams behind them but no experience, and somebody with 5 years experience but didn't take the 3 exams, I'll take the 5 years of experience any day. I'll take that hands down any day, any day. I don't know what the average is, and being that this is a global designation, you have to think globally. So in the US, somebody with a charter, a university degree, 5 years of experience, I think 150 plus, depending, if you're good, 250 plus, 300 plus as an analyst. If you're good, or you have a particular knowledge of a tough industry or an industry where, being a good analyst is more difficult. But this is what the market is looks like. That does not mean you have to take the market. Speaking in trader terminology, you can make your own market. You don't have to take it, which means after a while, if you have enough experience in a particular industry, you could set up your own research firm and be in a particular industry and sell your research to a number of different funds. So you could make, sky's the limit. It's as much as you can envision and that you can do. If you're just going to be a job taker and a clock watcher, which means 40 hours, I show up at 9, I leave at 5, you're not going far. Not in this industry. It's far too competitive. Because the guy beside you is getting in at 6 and the guy on the other side of you is leaving at 7. So if you're a 9 to 5er and you want your weekends and your nights, you'll drift to a cubicle somewhere on the 3rd floor, and that's where you'll stay. And maybe there's a role for you in a cubicle on the 3rd floor, but what's the most effective way to use your L1 material, and would you recommend using anything from CFAI to supplement your materials? Well, yeah, CFAI has all of the written material. There's no need to buy another provider's books. The exams are based on CFAI's writings, and that's it. Nobody else's book. And over the years, they've condensed the writing. It used to be that a reading would be 40, 50 pages, a lot of support material in there as well. Now they're broken down into modules. It actually ends up being more pages. But if you take out all the examples that are within the reading and you squeeze the narration down, it's much, much shorter. There's less to read now, but many more examples. which I think is a good idea. Less to read, more examples, because we learn better by example, not by narration. So I think that works well. Yeah, you're going to need that. So use the CFAI learning ecosystem. Uh, It'll have all your readings there. It'll have your question bank, the mock exams they give you. And then we have the videos, the review videos, the seminar videos. We have office hours. As you get closer to the exam, you'll see a whole bunch of office hours listed. And these are open tutoring sessions you attend, and you ask all the questions that you want. Let's get them all out of the way. Yeah, so I don't know that you would need to go, line up this and this and this, like 8 different providers, and it's too much. You just get overwhelmed. Is you have the CFAI ecosystem, you have your good provider, and you're good on that. Let's see. Will there be review videos coming up for all topics? It would really help with the continuous review processes. So would it be possible to group them all in one PDF? When you say PDF, I imagine you mean video. I used to do review videos when you had these long readings, where you were going through 8 to 10 learning objectives. The level 1 has moved towards the learning module, which is one or two learning objectives, and it's really short. So doing review videos with that is a bit of a challenge, because the review video would be like 3 minutes long. There wouldn't be enough there to create a review, because, like I said, the narration has shrunk considerably. In other words, the learning part of the text and the examples have increased dramatically. In reviews, you're just trying to review the highlights. So you don't want to start going through examples in the review. Otherwise, you're just repeating the video again. And some of the videos are as short as 15 minutes. I don't know how much more you can condense that stuff. So I don't know that the new approach, the module approach, lends itself well to review videos. I think it lends itself more to targeted seminars. Okay, this one wasn't done well. It's does not really clear. I'll teach it this way, but here's a great place to add another seminar that expands a little bit more, so that it's optional, because not everybody needs it, right? But the reviews, it's hard to see how I could make it even less. Now, the problem with reviews is that some candidates will look at the reviews and say, oh, wow, this is much shorter time, and will attempt to learn in the review videos. And it's nothing but questions. I don't get this. I don't get that. You're not explaining this. You're not explaining that. Well, yeah, because it's called a review. I explained it in the other video. This is just to remind you of what you heard over there. We have some that attempt to learn in the review videos. And with the module approach being so small and so short, I think it would be a trap to put the review videos up and have some run to the reviews and say, I'm just going to use these. Okay, what do we got here? What's the best way to express my view using options if I correctly know the Fed decision in advance? Higher for longer, one more rate hike, no cuts until next year. Best way to express your view using options. You correctly know the Fed decision? You correctly know that? I mean, this is their guidance. At least this is the implied guidance. If you look at the probabilities in the futures market for a rate hike, it's sitting at 26%. There's a 74% probability that that's it, that's done, even considering the dot plot. And I've said this before, even if you knew what the Fed decision was, let's say it's tomorrow, and you know what it was, what's going to happen to the dollar? Who the hell knows? So the Fed was not expected to raise rates, and it didn't raise rates. Would you have thought that the market reaction for the last 2 days would have been what it was? So you can know something. You can say, well, I know this is going to happen. What's the market response going to be? Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? You don't know what the market response is going to be. So what's the best way to express your view? I don't know. I don't know that saying, I know that this will happen. How do I express my view? Knowing something will happen is not a view. It's just a fact. So the better question would be, given these facts, this is my view. What's the best way to express that? You haven't given me your view. You've just said, I think these are facts. What do? I don't know. How's the market going to respond to those facts? I didn't expect today. I think the yields, the treasury yields, was a complete overdue, completely overdone. I think a lot of that. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. A large part of what happened in the treasury market today, I think, has to do with the Bank of Japan's rate decision today. I think there was a lot of selling of treasuries and an unwinding of the carry trade, because while the US dollar was king today, the yen was even stronger. So I think that some of the treasury bloodshed had to do with what we saw in Japan, or what's expected in Japan. And it's 10:40. BOJ is in 20 minutes. We'll see what happens, but there's some belief that they're going to signal their liftoff from where they are. And if they do signal their liftoff, the danger into the rest of the week, well, which is Friday, the danger going into tomorrow is massive selling in treasuries, because of the belief that, well, if I'm a Japanese investor and I'm holding US treasuries because I'm getting shit in Japan, I'm getting no return, so I may as well hold US treasuries. But I have to get yen back because I live in Japan. Well, if the yen really, really strengthens, no matter how much yield I get here, I'm buying less and less and less and less and less yen. So my biggest threat right now is the yen massively increasing. So before the central bank meeting in Japan, let me unwind some treasuries. And there's what, Japan collectively holds over $1 trillion in treasuries. So I think some of the carnage today in treasuries was probably in anticipation of Japan. So again, going back to your question, you feel these are facts. Okay, what's your view? And then figure out what you do. Let's see. I lost the question here. Let's go back. I want to know if I have level 1, can I hire in a company without any work experience or related academic degree? And also, does CFA certificate need any background, or can I start it with any level 1? No, you can start level 1. You don't need business school background. You can start level 1 regardless of what your degree was in. Hiring in a company without any work experience is challenging. It's challenging. Usually it's a better chance to get an intern position. Intern position is unpaid, but you're getting experience. But to get hired with zero experience, that's challenging. That's absolutely challenging, which puts you in a catch-22. Is how do you get the experience if you don't get the job? And if you don't have experience, you can't get the job. What the hell do? You got to get experience somewhere along the line. Unpaid internship tends to work. The applied series, I think, can go a long way because it is very applied. There is a whole module on portfolio construction and management that I'm working on now, that I think we're at week 7. It's going to be over a period of 6 months. The sector studies, there's a whole bunch in there about understanding banking, understanding mining, understanding utilities, which gets you to a very good knowledgeable level about particular industries, so that you can at least start saying, look, I have no experience, but I've run a paper portfolio for the last year, and I've run different modules, and here's my results. Here's, I know how to do a carry trade. I know how to do currency hedging. I can set up complex option trades. I know how. So there's something to be said about creating your own experience if the market's not going to give you experience, because all you need is a paper portfolio and time, and you can gain some experience that way, I think. But to show up to an interview, well, first of all, it would be, I think, difficult, especially if it's an attractive position. It would be difficult in the pile of resumes to make it to the second pile, which is the pile that will get called for an interview. If they look down, they say, okay, level 1, no job experience, music degree back. Because you're in competition with other people who have experience, who have level 2, who have business backgrounds. It's a competitive industry that you're entering into, so you have to compete. Nobody owes you anything, and you're not going to be handed something and the door is going to open. You have to find some way to differentiate yourself on your resume so that you make it into the room. Now, you still got to show up in that room. You still got to show up in that room and impress them, but at least you got in the room. You might be an impressive individual, but unless you can get in that room, no one will ever know. So there's got to be, if you're lacking all of that on the resume, there's got to be something on there that differentiates you from the rest. And I think a cover letter showing, your whatever trading platform you use, showing the results of your paper portfolio over a period of 3-4 quarters would go a long way to saying, oh, I've never seen this before. That's interesting. All right, let's talk to this person. Let's see what they got to say. And if you can get in that room and you can talk markets, you can talk the Fed, you can talk the economy. If you can talk the talk, you're there, right? But if I say to you, what did you think of the press conference? And you say, well, what press conference? I say, well, Powell. Who's Powell? Okay. You're not a serious person here. You don't want a career in finance. You want a paycheck, and you're here to get a paycheck, not a career. Thank you for coming, but off you go, right? You got to walk in that room and show them that it's your hobby. It's your hobby, and that you will share yourself with them, right? They know what they have to offer you. Like if I'm the employer and I'm interviewing you, I know what I have to offer you. This interview is really about what do you got to offer me, and that's what you have to present in that room. And you got to get in that room. Without experience, without any initiative to show experience as well, it's not going to happen. Let's see. Is the increase in GDP growth expectations related to the forecasts of AI's effect on productivity? I don't think so. No, I don't think it would have that kind of outsized effect that quickly. I would say the increase in earnings expectations for certain companies may be AI fueled, but for GDP, I don't think so. How similar is the 2022 level 1 to the 2023 level 1? I think fairly close. I think only a few sections, corporate finance, I know really changed. I think there were some additions to quant. and some deletions in quant. I think derivatives and alternative investments changed, or at least derivatives did. There were enough that I would want to use the 2023 content. Management consulting professionals spent 7 years in Big Four, primarily in the field of financial transformation consulting. The CFA, along with management analytics master, a good option to pivot. Pivot to finance? I don't know if I have enough information on that one. You got 7 years experience. I'm not sure exactly what financial transformation consulting encompasses or what your role was in that, so I can't really speak to that. Yeah, I don't know enough to know whether or not it's a good option to pivot, depending on what you're pivoting to. I would say that the journey to the designation, even if you don't go all the way through to the designation, is certainly not lost time. It will make you a better consumer of financial products. It will make you a better consumer of financial information. And being that we all have to retire at some point, and we all have to be responsible for our own wealth creation to a good degree, I don't see the downside of it. Even if you don't finish it, I don't see the downside of it. Can you explain this concept? What will be the effect on a direct exchange rate quote if the domestic currency appreciates? The quote itself, and keep in mind, CFA has quotes in terms of fractions. The market does not do it that way. Okay, so when you see a quote in the market, it is different than what you see in the CFA books. CFA is not a currency quote. It is a fraction, and it's done that way to make the math easy. That's all it is just to make the math easy, but it's a fraction where the denominator always equals 1. So the chart, if you look at a chart, whether it's going up or whether it's going down, it is the denominator of the currency that's getting stronger or getting weaker. So look at your quote, price over base, whatever is in the base, whether it be the domestic or the foreign. If the chart is going up, it's the base that's getting stronger. If the chart is going down, it's the base that's getting weaker. Simple as that. I study by watching the videos, pausing, and creating questions based on what was said. I have 220 hours and I've completed all the videos. I'm aiming for 500 hours. Yeah, I don't know if I like this. My target is 500 hours. Your target is whatever it takes, right? You could. I mean, I've done some things where I've said, okay, well, I got a couple hours, I can get this out of the way, and it turns into a 20-hour job. And I've done some other things where I said, okay, well, I got to do these things. I got the next 3 days and I'm done by noon. It takes what it takes. And that's it. It's not as if I'm going to give 3 hours here, 6 hours here. It takes what it takes. When you're done. I mean, when you're done where you say, okay, well, I get it. I mean, yeah, I can keep reviewing it, but I get it. So I don't know that I would aim for a particular number of hours as much as I would aim for that internal feeling of, okay, I got this. Can you explain implied forward rates and why they are looked at? Well, it's all in the word implied. It's implied. So if I give you a 1-year rate and I give you a 2-year rate, you can invest in 2 years. You could buy the 2-year zero coupon bond and you'll get, let's say, 5% the first year and then 5% on top of that. If the 1-year rate is 4%, what do you need for the second year to be indifferent between the two, right? So if I have a 2-year rate and I have a 1-year rate, I must be able to imply what the 1-year rate is 1 year from now. It would be the rate that would make me indifferent between investing for 1 year and then investing for 1 year versus investing for 2 years today. Why is it looked at? It becomes important at level 2 when you're looking at backwards induction in pricing out bonds with options. You're going to use forward rates in the tree as opposed to spot rates. So you have to be able to figure out, well, how do I calculate the forward rate? It also gives you the ability to hedge interest rate risk in the market. It gives you the ability to express a view on what the interest rate will be in 1 year. What will the 1 year rate be in 1 year? The implied forward rate says it's 6%. I think that's too high. You can then sell if there's a forward contract on that 1 year, you can sell the forward contract if you think it's too high. So it can be used for speculation. It can be used for hedging. It's used for building models. So there's a lot of uses for it. And as you go through the levels, you'll see exactly where the forward rates are used. Can you help me understand the drawbacks of the capital asset pricing model and what assumptions it relies upon? How does it differ from Fama-French? Well, how does it differ? Well, you're saying it right in there, 3-factor model. CAPM is a 1-factor model. The 1 factor is the market. And what it's saying is that the return on everything is a function of how much market risk it has. Keep in mind, CAPM, Fama-French are what are called equilibrium models. They're not fundamental models. They're equilibrium models, which means if you use equilibrium models to determine a required return for a number of stocks, let's say based on their beta, you will find that the higher the risk of the asset, the higher the return it should be. That's consistent. That would not work well with private assets. Sometimes private assets have a lower volatility. There is some debate whether or not private assets understate volatility or if public assets overstate volatility. I'm in the camp that public assets overstate volatility, and private assets may understate it, and the true volatility is somewhere in the middle. But it wouldn't work well for private assets. It wouldn't work well for some assets that that have some risk premium in there other than the market premium. So if we look at biotech companies, for example, using an equilibrium model that has 1 factor like the market factor, being that they're largely uncorrelated with the market, the beta would be extremely low. The expected return would be extremely low, but huge idiosyncratic risk, which means 1 factor is not catching all the risk premiums. There must be something more. It cannot possibly be that you're getting slightly more than the risk-free rate for investing in biotech. That simply makes no sense. But an equilibrium model would suggest that if the target had very low market factor risk. So the more factors you can put in there, the more you're going to capture different things that are driving the return. So there's the Fama-French 3-factor model, the Carhart 4-factor model, which I think is the more popular one. But that's your drawback right there. Is that it assumes that your returns are derived from known factors. CFP before or after CFA? I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. And honestly, I don't know that I have an opinion on that one. How to deal with mental health issues while studying for... Well, first, I'd need you to define what you think a mental health issue happens to be. I mean, I think that word gets thrown around a little too much. mental health. I'm stressed out. That does not mean I have poor mental health. It just means I'm stressed out. That is a natural reaction to being in a stressful situation as your body produces cortisone and you feel stressed out. It's a coping mechanism. I think that much of what is being called mental health problems today are nothing more than being in certain moods at certain times. When my dog died, I was sad for quite some time, but I didn't have a mental health problem. I wasn't depressed. I was sad for good reason, right? There are times I get frustrated, and I don't handle frustration very well. If anyone's ever seen me frustrated, I don't handle it well because I hate being frustrated. But that's just me being frustrated. That doesn't mean I have a mental health problem. So I would first, I'm not making, it out to be, oh, well, you don't have a mental health issue. I would first of all need to ask you a bunch of questions about, well, what do you mean by mental health issue? If you just mean that you get stressed out, okay, you get stressed out. There are relaxation techniques you can use for that kind of thing. So I don't know how to answer that other than to say much of what is being passed off as mental health issues today is nothing more than your body's coping mechanisms for situations that you happen to be in. And for those, I would say, I think the biggest issue with this is that feeling of being overwhelmed. That when you start with the content and you start turning the page and you start looking at how much you need to do, it just overwhelms you that I don't have the time. How am I ever going to get this done? And you feel the need to rush, and you're stressed out over it all the. Just calm down. That's not a mental health issue. That's just relax. It's just you don't know how to deal with stress. That's not mental health. That's just it's just stress. You feel overwhelmed. You just relax and you say, okay, my task is these 4 pages. That's it. Just ignore everything else. Your task are these 4 pages, and that's it. And you just break everything down into the next step. And all you focus on is just the next step, the next step, the next step. And I think you can get through it fairly well. But I'm always cautious with mental health, these terms, because it just seems today that it's being thrown around and almost anything is a mental health issue. And when we start thinking I have a mental health issue, we start thinking the problem is bigger than what we think it is. And we convince ourselves that I can't get this done because of these issues that I have. And you don't really have these issues. It's something else that's just being called that. What methodology do you recommend for memorizing formulas? Repeat them out loud. 5, 6 times. In fact, write them out. And as you're writing them out, repeat them. RE, the expected return, equals the risk-free rate plus beta multiplied by the equity risk premium. RE, the required return, equals the risk-free rate plus beta times, and just as you're writing it out, you say it to yourself 4, 5, 6 times. How often do these Q&A? How often do you do them? I don't know. Not too often, but often enough. I know that's not a good answer, but if you do them too often, you wear out your welcome. It's like, oh, here he goes again, another session. He just had one last week. I got pretty soon you'll have 3 people showing up, right? But if you don't do them often enough, I think that there are some people who have questions and no one to talk to, and may just drift away from CFA. So, if having one of these sessions brings 2 or 3 people back that say, you know what, I think I'm going to give it a shot. Well, then it's been a successful session. But you have to be careful, especially when you have an audience. I mean, I have 170,000 on YouTube, 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, another 80,000 followers. You can't saturate your audience with messages every single day. That's just annoying. But you can't ignore them for months on end. So you have to find the right balance where you say, okay, I feel now is the time to do something. So it's more, I do them often enough, but not too often. And it's, I wouldn't say instinct, just an intuitive feel of when I think it's time to do one. Which package do you recommend for level 1 2024? I think we're kind of like the iPhone on this one. We only have one package, right? I mean, I don't know that we have a whole bunch of options. You either buy a section or you buy all 10 sections at one time. Now, we do have the Plus, which is the CFA stuff plus the Applied series. Now, while the CFA level 1 lasts until your exam, or well, in truth, it lasts till you pass your level 1. So let's say that you write in February, it lasts till February. And if you don't pass in February, you tell us when you've rescheduled to, and we extend it to that date. And then once you pass level 1, it's done. But the Applied series component of it doesn't expire. You keep that. Which means when you get to level 2, you don't have to buy level 2 plus. You just have to buy level 2. And then same with level 3. You just buy level 3 because you'll have the Applied series. So if you want to see how this stuff is applied, a lot of it, how it's applied in the real world, that's what the Applied series will do for you. It is like a whole other level for CFA. It's, level 1, 2, 3 gives you a lot of the, I think level 1 is really textbook. Level 2 is textbook, kind of stepping into the real world a bit. And level 3 is probably more real world than textbook, but still very textbook, especially with capital market expectations, with the fixed income. It's still rather textbook. Some of those things don't work exactly the way it's described. So seeing the Applied series, seeing how it's applied, gives you a better understanding of what it is that you're working on through level 1, 2, and 3. But other than that, if you take out the Applied series, we don't have multiple packages. It's either you buy a section at a time or you buy all 10 at one time, and that's it. It's kind of like we only have one iPhone, right? Why is the central limit theorem important? Well, it's not important if you just want to do hypotheses testing and you just want to take my word for it that you're good to go. You just go right ahead and you do your hypotheses testing, and if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. The central limit theorem forms the basis upon which you can do hypotheses testing and feel comfortable with a normal distribution. So let's take any population, and who cares what the distribution of that population is? Who cares? It's a messed up distribution with no properties. Who the hell cares? And let's take a sample from that distribution. From that sample, we can calculate the mean. Well, the mean is a random variable, right? It's just a random variable because if you took a different sample, you'd get a different mean, slightly different mean. And if you took another sample, you get a slightly different mean. And if you took another one, you get a slightly different mean. So the mean of each sample that you take, let's say you take a sample of 40, calculate the mean, take another sample of 40, calculate, keep doing that. You get a whole bunch of means. Well, if you plot the means will form a normal distribution. That's the central limit theorem. It's that if you take a sample, the mean and the variance as well, being that they are random variables, it would not matter what the distributional properties of the population were, you would have a firm distributional property of the distribution of the means of the samples. And from that, you can then do hypotheses testing, understanding that the standard deviation of that distribution is the standard error of the mean. And now you can conduct hypotheses testing and saying, I feel confident about the distributional properties of the mean because of the central limit theorem. Who cares what the distributional properties are of the population? So it's more of a way of saying you're good to go, right? Don't worry about it. You're good to go. Take your sample, and you can test your mean to see if it's different than what you hypothesize. You can test it to see if it's different from zero, and you can use the properties of the normal distribution. You're good to go. That's what the central limit theorem is permission to go ahead and do it. How might the Fed's decision to postpone rate increases impact the yield curve and fixed income securities? Can we discuss implications for bond portfolios and hedging strategies? Well, I don't know that. You see, here's the thing. Is it the Fed's decision, or is it the interpretation of the market about the Fed's decision? So there are times where the Fed will do exactly what they said they will do, and the market responds in a way that you think, well, that doesn't make any sense. So it's how the market's going to respond. I don't know. I have no idea. I think given a certain set of facts, you can say, I feel that we should be doing this, but Mr. Market has a way of kicking your ass when you least expect it and making a fool out of everybody, at least once a year, no matter who you are. How might it impact the yield curve? Postpone rate increases. Well, you're saying something very particular there, that there are rate increases, they're just postponing them. Well, if that was what the market expected, that rate increases are in the future, they would find their way into the curve. Can we discuss implications for bond portfolios and hedging strategies? Not without more information on that. Will the market analysis be returning this week? Yeah, I'll do the regular Sunday, but they'll be shorter because my goal is to do videos throughout the week as economic data comes out, to do, important economic data or an interesting story, to do a video on that as it comes out, as opposed to these 1 hour, 1.5 hour, sometimes 2 hour videos on Sundays, because they take a lot of time to do. And I don't know that, when I look at the statistics of longer videos versus the shorter videos, there is a higher proportion of viewers that go all the way through the shorter videos than the longer videos. So, but yeah, I will be doing a regular Sunday market outlook, but it will be condensed and shorter. Any predictive power in percentile rank and percentage of questions correct in the LES? I don't know. I would seem to think so. I would seem to think that if you're scoring in the 70th percentile, 80th percentile, I'm sure the other people who answered those questions were answering them honestly, and not just just going through them to go through them. So I think there's some information on where you stand versus the crowd. I don't know if there's ever been anything done from CFAI in terms of the predictive power, because they would know where you are. They have that data. They would say, okay, well, this person's 75th percentile, this one's 96%. I don't know if they've ever taken that and said, well, now we know your results and we know where you ranked. Is there a relationship between that? I can only imagine there would be. I don't know the strength of that relationship. I don't have the data for that. CFAI would have the data. I don't know if internally they've run any of those numbers. Do you think Canada has a bright financial outlook with attracting more financial corporations or organizations? Look, you'll always need finance. If you have a capitalist economy and a market-based economy, you'll always need finance. The danger there is what if we move away from a market-based economy and a capitalist economy? What if more and more socialist policies creep into the point where we feel, well, why not just be socialist? At that point, there's less of a role for finance, not more of a role, but less. So I don't know that we'd move away from a market-based capitalist system. I think we're in a period right now where we have more elements socialism showing up to the point of negative outcomes. We have what used to be high productivity infrastructure. But because of our immigration policy, we have, I think, in the G7, the fastest population growth in the G7. I think it was like almost 3% last year, and plans to keep that going. We think, well, Canada's a big country. No, it's not. No, it's not. Most immigrants to Canada land in one of four cities: Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, or Vancouver. So in essence, Canada is that big, is those four cities. That's the size of Canada. And that population is growing disproportionately versus a place like, if you're in Ontario, a place like Timmins. Timmins has had a population of 45,000 since 1970. It's still 45,000. People aren't immigrating to Timmins. I don't blame them. It's bloody cold. So what happens is, if you've ever driven in and around Toronto, you realize that it takes you hours just to go anywhere. So you've taken high productivity infrastructure and you've turned it into low productivity infrastructure. You've taken the top tax rate and increased it, and then layered on even more punishing taxes if you try to spend anything you make after tax. And we have population growth that is far outstripping GDP growth, such that our GDP per capita has actually been shrinking. In other words, the standard of living in Canada has been decreasing. Our productivity, our infrastructure productivity has been decreasing, and our tax rates going up. That is the negative outcome of moving to more socialist policies. Is you will get lower productivity, you'll get higher taxes, you'll get capital flight. Look at me, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. I'm going from a 53.5% tax rate to a 1% tax rate, less than 1% when you figure, well, Costa Rica does have some taxes that you got to pay. They're not called income taxes, but there are some, but as a proportion of my income, it drops to 1%. So you get capital flight, which means you have a lower tax base, which means everyone's got to pay even more. You bring more people in, which then lowers the productivity of your infrastructure even more, while raising the costs for everybody else. So do I think that we have a bright financial future if we stop this nonsense now? The last study I saw on our immigration rate showed that Canada has the fastest move into poverty by new immigrants of any of the G7. That means when immigrants come to this country, they move into poverty faster than anywhere else. Liberal governments and socialist governments, which we have a coalition liberal and socialist government, never think about the negative consequences of things. They just think about, this is our policy and we're going to push it through. Negative consequences be damned, and here we are with negative consequences. I don't know if we're a good, attractive country anymore for organizations. I don't know that we are. That's just me saying what I'm saying, right? Do you recommend using CFAI book along with your course? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Take the CFA exam by February next year. It's really hard to be disciplined and follow the study plan. Do you have any tips and tricks about how to become more disciplined? Being more disciplined really comes from how you view something. I hate cleaning the house. So I have people who come in and clean the house because I hate cleaning the house. If I had to clean the house every Saturday, it was like, ugh, I'd be cutting corners. I'd start off excited after half an hour. Yeah, after an hour, okay, I'm done. I just, I'm not going to do those other 3 rooms. But when it's something I want to do, I don't need discipline. I need discipline to stop. So if you like sports, maybe you need discipline to stop watching it. If you like playing video games, maybe you need discipline to stop doing it. So if you feel that you need discipline to do something, it's because you see it as a task. You see it as a chore, not a hobby. You got to find a way to turn it into a hobby. You got to find a way to make it part of your meaning for being, right? So to get there, to turn it into something more, don't try these wholesale changes in your life where, okay, tomorrow I'm going to get up and it's all going to be brand new. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That never works. That never holds. That might work for a day or two, and then it goes away. It goes away. Small changes. Make one small change in what you're doing. So maybe what you say every day is 5 minutes. I'm going to read carefully for 5 minutes. And then the next day you say 6. I'm going to go for 6 minutes. And eventually it'll catch on. Eventually you'll get addicted to that kind of thing. So what you can do is make a to-do list of a whole bunch of little things, a whole bunch of tiny little things, not big things. Study for 4 hours, go to the gym for 2 hours, eat less than 1,500 calories. These are big things that don't really hold. Make a to-do list of a whole bunch of little things. There's 50 things on your list, right? You'll get addicted to crossing things off that list. So it could be study for 5 minutes, walk around the block once, study for 7 minutes, wash 3 plates, silly little things like that. All these little tiny things. You will be surprised at how addicting it becomes crossing things off your list because you feel like you're getting shit done. It's all little stuff, but that's how we get through our day. Doing these big monolithic tasks are usually done by doing a whole bunch of small steps in there. So if you can get into the routine of every night before you go to bed, maybe take 15 minutes and write down just a whole bunch of little stuff, just a bunch of little stuff that you do during the day. And then you'll do something, you'll cross it off your list. You'll do something, you'll cross it off your list. I'm making good progress. I got 2 things off my list. Well, it is addicting. Crossing those things off your list, it is addicting. So I think that's one way to get discipline is to envision it as a whole bunch of small little steps, and off you go. Currently studying my master's in finance. How hard would it be to go for level 1, and how complementary would it be to my professional outcome? Well, I don't know where you're doing your master's in finance. I don't know what their focus is. There are some schools where their finance department really focuses more on like corporate finance and not so much market-based finance. I don't know that that's really going to do a lot for you, other than, with an accounting designation, maybe set you up for a CFO pathway. So I don't know enough about where you're doing your master's in finance, what the focus of it happens to be able to tell you how complementary it is. But you can go to CFAI.org and you can look at the level 1 curriculum, and you can line it up against what you're taking, and you can determine how complementary it is. Probably your best resource is to look at your finance professors, or look at the finance department, look at the finance professors. They'll all have PhD. Some of them will have PhD CFA. Go see one of them and ask them, hey, listen, I'm thinking of doing level 1. How complementary is this with level 1? Now, if they did their CFA exam 20 years ago, they might be out of touch with where it is today, but there's a lot that you could do on your own on that. Trying to transition to investment research management. I have an economics degree, currently work at a think tank. Aside from CFA, any advice breaking into the field without direct experience? Well, what industry do you like? Let's start there. What industry do you like, and what companies do you know in that industry, and how much do you know about that industry? And you should know something about it. A good way to start would be, well, you can start a Substack. If you are good at a particular industry and you can analyze companies, you might want to think about seeking alpha or start publishing some of your stuff online. Then you have on your resume, you have links to work that you've done. I know that if I got a resume that had links, I'd click on the links. I'd click on the links just to see, well, let's see what this is about. Because now I'm doing an interview right here without having to interview you. I'm looking at your writing. I'm looking at your thought process. I'm looking at your level of knowledge. I can see it all right in front of me. So, yeah. Why is there no longer a comment section in your 2024 level 3 videos? It was unsustainable for the most part, just to put it as blatantly as we can. It was dominated by a small every year. I'm not pointing at any one individual name here, but year after year, at all 3 levels, the comments section was dominated by a small group. And when I say small, I mean 0.35%, not 35%, not 3.5%, 0.35% were responsible for about 60% of the questions. What's this? What's that? Where'd you get this? What's this word mean? Explain this more, explain that more. And, I can clearly hear myself saying the answers to the questions in the videos, but it's just an endless stream of questions, 20, 30 questions per video, 200, 300, 400 questions. If you got 300 questions at level 1, you're just not doing it right, or you're just not trying. So we just decided that it's not a benefit for anyone at this point, really. It's unsustainable. It's hugely expensive to keep this up. We lose money, like significant money, on this small group of people. We can't possibly charge for the number of questions they answer. We do have subsidized tutoring available. And you can, in a tutoring session, you can get 30, 40 questions out. Like, you can get a lot out in a tutoring session. And we have worked it so that you have some of the lowest price tutoring out there that has a charter holder on the other side that has recently completed their level 3 as well. So we've got extremely low rates, and we increased our office hours. The office hours are Q&A sessions that happen usually about 6 to 8 weeks before the exam. Lots of sessions. And I know when I do the level 3 Q&A sessions, I stay on until all the questions are answered. I don't say like it's an hour and then I stop. I stay on all the way through. I think all the sessions, level 1, 2, 3, are like that, where there's a time frame that's given, but I don't know that anybody really respects the time. They just stay on till all the questions are answered. So we increased the number of office hours. And got rid of that section, but we left it so that you could put your private notes in. So there, go ahead, put all your questions in your private notes. You will find that as you go through the video, you will answer many of your own questions. The ones that you have left, they're the office hours. So when office hours happens, you can click on, and it'll be for a particular section. You can go to your private notes and you can cut and paste, and ask me all the questions you want. And that's where I'll answer them when I can draw it out on the screen. Some questions don't lend themselves well to an answer in words when I have to say, imagine a line going up. Now raise the bottom part, lower the long part, twist it. You're not going to get the same image in your mind. So that's why we got rid of them. It was hugely expensive. It was unproductive. It was a nightmare to manage, and it was dominated by such a small group of people who asked 60% of the questions, to the point of, we just can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this. Something has to change. Now, we are experimenting with something different in the hopes of being able to offer this again, to be able to say, look, people have questions. How can we find a way to answer the question while not having to deal with that small group that totally destroys it for everyone else by just dominating it with, and honestly, a lot of the questions is stuff that can simply just be looked up. It can just be looked up. Look it up. Look it up, right? But it just got unsustainable. And when you have, on a particular level, 9,000 candidates preparing for the next exam, it's you simply can't keep up with that kind without having something far more scalable. Q&A, typed out Q&A is not scalable. It's not scalable at all. And when something is not scalable, and you're going to keep doing it, what has to scale is your price. Your price has to go straight up when you have a feature that's not scalable. We have always prided ourselves on being an extremely accessible course. Quality, university quality teaching at an accessible price. And I've really tried to stress that. Keeping this, prices would have had to go up on everybody to pay for that 0.35. There was no other way to do it. We tried numerous different versions of, okay, well, what if we had a counter? What if it were 10 questions? What if it were that? Nothing really worked because it was unscalable, which means that we would have just had to charge everybody. That's socialism, right? That is asking everybody to sacrifice for the benefit of the few. That's what unions do. That's a socialist approach. The more creative capitalist approach is to say, let's try to solve this problem in a scalable way. And of course, that is subsidized tutoring for those who want, those who have that many questions. They should have to pay for the burden of what they want. $65 an hour, I don't think is a lot to ask for that. For everyone else, we have office hours. And we are looking at a technology that may be able to get this done for us. May be able to. We won't know until we actually start experimenting. Do you recommend Prereq Qbank as a must, or just watching it? I don't know that I would kill myself on a Prereq Qbank. The prereqs are just, watch the video, and if you say, okay, I'm not getting this, go watch the prerequisites. That's it. If you're watching the video, like economics, you watch the first video in economics, you say, okay, I get this. You don't need the prereqs, right? Let's see. I watch a prereq video starting any new chapter. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I don't know that I'd do any deep diving on any Qbank for that. I'm doing level 1 at November and not studied portfolio ethics and alternatives yet, but I'm feeling that I couldn't get the essence of financial statements. Should I get back to that right now? Well, alternatives is straightforward and easy. Okay, that's that you can knock that out. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Ethics is a memorization game. Portfolio management has some math in it, and it can be a little, no, I wouldn't say tricky. It's a little thick at times in the mathematics of modern portfolio theory. But for financial statements, if you don't have any accounting background, it can be a little bit overwhelming because it just seems to keep throwing things at you until if you have that accounting background, you go, okay, well, I know there's debits and credits, and it's got to be one or the other, and so it's a little bit easier, especially if you understand the linkages between the three statements. That's your call on that one. I don't know that there's any one right answer for that. What could disrupt predicted Fed rate hikes and impact markets? Name it. What are we got? War, disease, pestilence, a meteor crashing into the earth, a major earthquake somewhere. There's a whole bunch of exogenous events that could happen. Endogenously, meaning from within the economy, endogenously. I don't know that I would look to the banking sector. Maybe commercial real estate, because a lot of debt is coming due in the next 12 months, 24 months. Maybe something there that might hold back growth or hold back, because if you hold back bank lending, you hold back growth. It may hold back bank lending, which will hold back growth. A sovereign default somewhere in the world. Pick a country with a lot of external debt in either euros or USD, probably USD being the more dangerous one. I mean, there's a lot that could happen. Endogenously harder because it's part of the system, and usually there are things within the system to help. Like when SVB failed earlier in the year, the Fed was very quick to put things in place to calm that down and to reassure everybody that the banking sector is going to be okay. So if you can predict it, if it can be predicted, it can be avoided. It's usually what usually takes an economy down is something that can't be predicted, so it can't be avoided, which is usually exogenous events. Why are you leaving Canada? Two reasons. Taxes. Number one is probably having to pay more in taxes and being and the threat of being punished more. It's no longer about fair taxation. It really is about punishment for successful people. Okay, understand in a free market economy, there are no rich people. That's a fallacy. That's a lie that governments tell you. Okay, there are no rich. There are successful people. Successful people happen to have money. Okay, they're successful people. They're not rich people. They're successful people. So whenever you hear politicians say we just need the rich to pay their fair share, what they're saying is we need successful people to pay more. We're going to go after successful people. The one thing we can't stand in this country is all these successful people. If they weren't so successful, other people would have more success. Give me you got to give your head a shake on that one. So I got a 53.5% tax rate. Also, if I try to spend any of that after-tax money on any luxury item, my government says, oh, you want to enjoy some of that? How about another 20% tax rate on top of the 13% sales tax rate? So for you, my friend, because you've been so greedy, creating employment, bringing money into the country, exporting services, you've been so greedy, you'll pay 33% sales tax after you pay 53.5% to us, after we lower the productivity of your infrastructure. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's time to go. It's just time to go. If you disagree with a government, you can vote. If your voting doesn't work and the majority still vote for the government that you just can't stand, then you vote with your feet. You leave. And that's what I'm going to do. That's the big reason. Number two is it's time to see the rest of the world. I've lived in Canada and the US my whole life. I basically lived in Western North America my whole life. It's time to see the rest of the world. I've had a good life here, but there's a whole world out there. Time to go. Time to put myself in a new situation and a new culture, a new language, and explore what the world has before I shuffle off this mortal coil. But the taxes really got me to that decision first. Currently working on my level 1. I see some prerequisites or exams can include those. No. There is no testing of the prerequisites on any exam. No testing at all. They're just there to bring you up to speed on the language of a particular reading. So if you have no economics background whatsoever, maybe the prerequisites might help you. If you have no accounting background whatsoever, maybe the prerequisites might help you. That's what they're there for. How will moving to Costa Rica impact your ability to trade? It will not. Can you still trade on Toronto Stock Exchange? I can trade anywhere in the world. If you have interactive brokers and they're in every country, you can trade any market, anytime, anywhere. I just cannot have a Canadian account to do it. I just have to close my Canadian accounts and open up somewhere else. But I will have JP Morgan accounts. I mean, I am moving there in their international division. And then I'll still have interactive brokers. Not only that, when I leave Canada, I don't have to close my pension accounts or my TFSA. I can no longer contribute to them, but I still own them. I still have the ability to make trades in them. I can still get that done. You just can't have a taxable account in Canada if you're not a Canadian. So it's just a matter of setting up once I'm in Costa Rica, but it won't affect my ability to trade. How to improve ability to learn. It's it is what's a good word to use here? I don't want to use incremental. It's well, I'll explain it in words. Let's say that you have a moderate ability to learn. You're average. The more you learn, the faster you will learn. The more you know, the more you learn, the faster the next learning bit becomes. So that's what I mean by it's not quite incremental, but it is additively incremental, let's say. So how do you improve your ability to learn as you start? You simply start learning, and you'll find that as you learn more, the next things you learn come quicker and quicker and quicker. And the more connections you have in your mind, the more connections your mind makes, the more new information fits in with the existing connections that you have. So it's how do you improve your ability to run? You start running. How do you improve your ability to sing? You start singing. How do you improve your ability to speak a new language? You start speaking a new language. How do you improve your ability at anything? You simply start and you keep doing it, and you can increase your intelligence. So if you know if you take an IQ test at 20 and you take one at 30, if you are a learner in life, you will find that your intelligence quotient at 30 will be higher than it was at 20. It's not fixed. It can be changed. You can gain intelligence points, much like you can lose intelligence points over time. So it can be improved. Any recent books that you would recommend reading? On LinkedIn, Mohammed Al-Arian had a post of the six books that are on a list, the Financial Times list as the 6 best business books. One of them is Elon Musk's biography. There are a couple of other ones I forgot the title of, but search for his last posting or Financial Times 6 top business books 2023, and you'll get them. I'd say those look like good ones to start with. Best way to remember differences between IFRS and US GAAP. Well, I don't know if there's a best way to remember the differences. Understand that CFAI takes the perspective of IFSR in everything. And here's where GAAP is different. It's not as if it's a GAAP reading and IFSR is different. Everything is IFSR, and here's where GAAP is different. I don't know that there's a best way to remember the differences between them. Is there a company... no, with clean surplus accounting that I can do residual income? Off the top of my head, no, I don't know. Can someone who filed consume? And the thing is, I don't know that you necessarily need that if you forecast it. You can forecast. You can forecast. Yeah, you could just forecast it. I mean, if you're doing a valuation on residual income, what happened 5 years ago does not matter for valuation. Valuation is about discounting the future. Well, the future is unknown, so just make it so. Can someone who filed consumer proposal or bankruptcy can hold the charter and work in the file? Yeah. Yeah, I think you can. I don't see that a bankruptcy is something that disqualifies you from that. There's all sorts of reasons and circumstances why something like that would happen. Exam on the 15th, and I'm learning from free material on your website. Is there any way I can get access to the curriculum example videos? I'm ready to pay. Then do it. Is there any way to get access? Yeah, just if you're ready to pay, I think you've answered your own question. Maybe I'm not understanding the question, but I'm reading it as sir, I'm in your store. I see a Diet Coke for $1. Is there any way that I can get it? I'm ready to pay. And he would say to me, that's the point of the store. You bring it over here, you give me the $1, you get the Diet Coke. If you're ready to pay, just go ahead. Can you talk about the upcoming 3 new foci at level 3? This is a level 1 session. I do have a level 3 session coming up, so I'm going to pass on that one, okay? Would the charter help? Maybe you're a level 1 asking about level 3. Still, I'm going to send you to the level 3 session when it comes out. I think it's like next Sunday. Would the charter help in obtaining a relevant job in Europe, more specifically Germany, considering a BBA degree and fluency in the local language, assuming work experience? Well, I'm far removed from the job market, but I will say this: it won't hurt, and it can incrementally help. When I get questions like this, will this degree get me a job? Will this get me a job? It's like, no, you get a job. Those are things that get you in the room. The more of those things you have, the higher your probability of getting in the room. But they don't hire your resume, they hire you. You have to impress in that room. That's the bigger test, is not your resume. Your resume is meant to get you in the room, not get you the job, but get you in the room. You still have to show up in that room and be able to talk the talk. So I don't know that I would say, will this help me get a job? Will this help you get in a room? Yes. Can you get a job? I know nothing about you. I mean, you may be fluent in the language and know your field very well and be able to handle any question that comes up. Or you might be an asshole, and it shows up in every job interview you go in where people say, God damn, I'd never hire that person to save my life. I don't know anything about you. But I mean, think about your resume as getting you, it opens a door. It doesn't get you a seat at the table. It just opens the door. You have to do the rest. You're still alive? Yeah. Was there a rumor that I wasn't? Waiting for my level 1 results and doing some independent academic financial research in the open study time slot. What topics do you think would be exciting for employers' journals currently? That's a good question. Independent academic financial research. Central bank digital currencies seem to be getting a lot of attention lately. You have the public option or the private option, the cryptocurrencies or the central bank currency. Will they solve the same problems? I think there's some interesting things there. Handicapping the Fed. I mean, looking at how the Fed communicates. I wonder if there's a way that you can look at the difference between I don't know where you get the data, but the Fed fund futures per month, how close was it to the actual Fed moves? Let's say in the last 5 years versus, let's say, 2002 to 2008 versus 2019 to 2023, to sort of measure the effectiveness of Fed communication, and if you had a tighter correlation in the latter 5 years than pre financial crisis, it's a very good signal that central bank communication has gotten better. And if that's the case, then we can take the Fed at its word. When it says something, it just means that we can rely more on the Fed. I don't know. Has it? I don't know. So, but that's a big thing. You're not just going to get that done in your study time slot. I would say, think of a question that interests you, because research is really freaking boring when the question doesn't interest you. God, let me tell you how absolutely boring academic research is when you have no inherent interest in the research question. Dear God, shoot me now. So I would say that if you're going to do anything like this, find a question that's interesting to you, because research is bloody boring. Does applied? Oh, I just lost the question now. Where to go? Oh, there it is. Does applied market series aim to equip someone who has no practical trading? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. When to start? Follow-up cues. When to start? Anytime you want. I don't know that there is a time for it. I'm watching one topic video per day. Then I go to solve 10, 15 practice questions per day. Yeah, it's a plan. Is this a good way to prepare for level 1? Keep in mind, regular review, right? Regular review. It's not enough just to go linearly through the whole thing. You will forget a lot of what you learned up front. So always have that return to what you've done for just review, right? Are you ever going to continue with the Applied Market Series videos? I have been. Last update was September 2020. No. Last update was understanding utilities. That went up before I went to Costa Rica. I'm now working on, where am I? Screen 5 now on interest rate futures. There I'm going to cover the federal funds, 1 month and 3 months SOFR. They're not that exciting. They're interesting, but they're not that exciting. But still, it's necessary to cover them. But no, I've been keeping up with them. Plus, on YouTube every Sunday is the market outlook. Not related to CFA, but he's still bullish on DHI and other home builders. Structurally, listen, as long as interest rates are high, you're going to keep existing home sales off the market. You have a generational wealth transfer that's going on every single day. The baby boomer generation is going through retirement. They're halfway through retirement, but that means there are some that are 75, and some of them are dying. And that is the largest wealth in any generation is with the baby boomers, and that's all being passed down now. So you're going to have a level of demand for housing that is going to be funded with inheritance money and with parents' money, especially gifting strategies to avoid the taxation, the estate taxation. So yeah, as long as there is a structural shortage in housing, of which there is, yes, I would think that if you can get DHI under 105, under 100 would be great. You get an ugly day tomorrow. Things could, if it follows through for tomorrow. Somebody had said on here, I saw that Japan had decided to do nothing. So let's just look at what's going on with the yen right now. 148.13. So yeah, the yen 0.38, 0.4%. The yen has weakened significantly. Nice big jump. Futures markets look fairly safe, up 7.5 points, and treasuries should be fairly safe as well, and they're not. Oh well. Treasuries are still got a bit of a hangover from today. But yeah, I think I'm still bullish on DHI. If we can get a couple more ugly days, I think selling the 105 puts, selling the 100 puts, you're sitting down at 110 right now. I think we finish at 110, 111 on DHI, maybe a little under 100, 110. I think the last price I saw was sometime in the afternoon. I know we sold off in the close. Let's see. Stay on subject like quant to get good at it, or continue on, let the curriculum reinforce and return. So I have somebody that works for me that started with fixed income and then went to quant. And when they went to quant, they said, oh, that fixed income makes sense now because of this and because of this. So they went to quant with questions in their head. And it was more relevant because they had the fixed income. Some of the stuff in fixed income didn't fit well. And then when they went to quant, that fell into place. So two things fell into place at the same time. So there's something to be said about starting with something like fixed income where you don't have the quant background. You're not going to grab it at first, but when you get to quant, they all, it clicks really nicely because you now are studying with questions in your head. So, maybe move on. Yeah, let the curriculum reinforce. Yeah. Based on previous candidate feedback, what's your view on the percent of calculate versus explain? Has dropped considerably over the years. So if you go back like 2014, 2015, 20 to 25% of the exam might have had a calculate in there somewhere, to the point now where it's down, I think, under 10%. Calculate, but before you start jumping up and down saying, yay, it's gotten easier, it's more conceptual. I mean, it's easy. Here's some numbers. Oh, I know the formula, plug and chug, and out you go. You don't really calculate a lot of things in the real world unless you're into some heavy financial engineering, but most of the numbers are given to you on a screen. It's knowing, well, how did those numbers come to be, and what changes somewhere will affect these numbers. So you have to know what the formula is to say, well, I know what my denominator is, I know what my numerator is, and I know of that. If this thing happens over here, it's going to change the denominator, which will change this. I don't actually have to calculate it, but I better be aware of what pressure it's going to have on price if something affects the denominator or the numerator. So it's more conceptual. That does not mean you have to sort of go lighter on the form. If anything, a little bit, you want to understand them a little bit more, because now it's conceptual, not just plug and chug, right? What strategy are you having for the review revision the last 30 days? Well, I think that you start with a mock exam, uncover your weaknesses, uncover them right away, and weaknesses you will have. Don't let that get you down, and you'll read some question and go, I forgot all this. Yes, that's right. But that's what you want to know. You want to baseline all that stuff. Otherwise, you don't know what to do. You may say, well, I better go review quant. And if you did a mock exam, you might have scored perfect in quant. Well, then what are you wasting your time for? Uncover your weaknesses. Do a couple mock exams, uncover your weaknesses, and then go from there. Do you recommend a CFA to get info FP&A, or do you recommend a CFA to get info FP&A to get into M&A? To get into M&A, or can I take more advantage of it if I look to a career in investment? Listen, M&A is, and investment banking is probably, in this competitive industry, the most competitive room in this industry. Everybody wants in on that. It's not an entry-level position. It is a later career position that you move into, but not an entry-level position unless you are well connected or you have incredible pedigree coming in. In other words, the right school with the right last name. and parents have the right connections. It is super competitive to get in, and it's big money, which means it's the best of the best. And you're coming heavy, which means you're coming with experience. So it's investment banking, M&A, that's nothing you walk into, right? If you want a job, a very high level job, where you really don't have to be qualified for it, where you can just walk in off the street. Prime Minister of Canada is a good example of a job where you could be, let's say, a drama teacher, not even a real teacher, like a drama teacher, and you could become prime minister. It is an entry-level job. Graduating with a business degree, concentrating in finance and MIS. Internship experience, but it isn't finance related. Gave one last month. I want to enter asset management. Any tips? Well, asset management also is not an entry-level job, because there's people's money on the line that I think that you'd want to. I don't even know if you'd want to work for an asset management firm to begin with, because you might be in the back office or middle office, which means no pathway to the front office. Same with sales. There's very little pathway to asset management there. I think the best way to asset management is probably analyst first. And wherever you are an analyst with a very clear understanding between you and the employer that that's the pathway that you want to follow, which means big bank. One of the bigger banks that have those multiple pathways. Bank of Japan unchanged. Yeah. As someone sitting for L1 in February, can we complete the practical skills module after the exam? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If I get the $700 package, do I get that cap? I'll tell you what, if you live in Canada or the US, I'll see what I can do about getting you a cap. With no prior experience, how would you recommend getting started with CFA level 1? Just jump right in. Should I do the CFA prereqs and then your material? Does the material cover the prereqs? Just jump right in. Prereqs is necessary, right? Just jump right in. That's what I suggest. Mutual fund rep considered an acceptable experience? I don't think so. It's either going to be analysis or asset management. Is it too long to prepare for May level 1? No. Starting the studying in August, surely it doesn't imply any deficits in terms of ability, given some people just need 4 months to complete their study. Surely it doesn't imply any deficits in terms of ability. No. No, I guess I'm not understanding that part of the question, given some people just need 4 months. So what if some people need 4? So what if some people need 6? I mean, so what? I mean, I don't know that really matters. Considering well-being, pattern as I work full-time in an irrelevant field, all stuff returned to profs in the uni. Not even sure that's a sentence, so I'm going to pass on that. My exam is November 16th. I finished FSA Quant CI in the middle of fixed income. Do you think I need enough time for the pizza? No. Let's see. Level 2 candidate here just dropped by to say thanks for your explanation, focusing more on understanding concepts. Level 2 is hard, but focusing on what I can control. Good. Are you ever going to continue with the applied? I saw that question. A question about your course. If I buy level 1 full access 2024, I'm planning to take the exam November 2024. Will the full access expire November or lifetime? Till you pass level 1. Once you pass level 1, you don't need it anymore. Then it goes into what's called the archive. And that means when you go to level 2 and you need to refer back to level 1, you can use the app on your device. You can use the app to access the archive, not the site. It's just for streaming and to keep costs low, because archives build up exponentially. So we offer them in the app. But no, not lifetime access. Once you pass level 1, you move on to level 2. If I take your course, will you be teaching from the basics level 1? Yes. I took level 3 this past 4th of September. Thanks for everything. With your help and some luck, I might be done. Good. What potential risks does Bank of Canada face in its current approach to managing inflation and potential rate hikes? Well, I think that the Bank of Canada faces the same risk every central bank faces in raising hikes as they go too far and they break something. And then they have to, well, first of all, that will cure inflation. All right. Nothing cures inflation like a recession. It has a 100% track record of curing inflation. Nothing cures it like a recession. So, yeah, if you want to get rid of inflation like now, raise rates 300 basis points overnight and break something and force a recession, you'll get rid of inflation. But that's the Bank of Canada is no different than any other central bank in raising rates. The risk is you go too far. Can a Bachelor of Science in Business Admin qualify for the exam? Yeah. What do you think mortgage rates will be in Canada in 2025? Lower. I'd say lower. Yeah, lower. Any takes on the Canadian and Indian tension? I think it's a stupid hill to die on for Trudeau, but Trudeau's not a bright person, right? So he'll choose to die on this hill. We have to understand that there's a long historical tension there that is not our business. to put it bluntly, it's not our business. Okay, there is finger pointing and blame to go around on both sides. Let's keep in mind it's India has a point. It was the Sikh community out of Canada that blew up that airliner. It was the Sikhs that killed their prime minister, that assassinated Indira Gandhi. I mean, if that had happened in Canada, if a group of people in Canada had done that and then ran to another country, and that other country then said, hey, stop pushing these people around to Canada, I think Canada would respond the same way as, well, what the hell are you doing? You're harboring terrorists. They killed our prime minister. They blew up a plane with our citizens, and now you're yelling at us because we're angry with them. Like, I mean, Canada would have the same response if a group here did that and went somewhere else. It's not our business on this one here. Yes, they're in Canada. Yes, they live here, but they want change in another country. That's not our business. That's not our business. And I find it a very stupid hill to want to die on, so I just, I don't think it's a wise move that you have a significant amount of trade going on between Canada and India, and that every Canadian now must suffer because of the way this is being handled. And okay, fine. They Canada thinks, or some people in Canada think, that India came into the country and killed somebody. Yeah, okay. There's an issue there. Maybe say something about, listen, we don't really like that, but to make a stand on it, the way that he wants to make a stand on it, I just don't think this makes a lot of sense. It kind of gets close to foreign interference, in another country's sovereignty, saying, pushing for this, I don't know. I think it's gone too far. I think it was handled poorly. Trudeau did try to get the UK and the US to back him on this, and they wouldn't. There's something, right? There's something right there. Is like, okay, well, if I got no friends on this one, is CFA seeing a drop in interest? CPA Canada is getting rid of a lot of the rigorous requirements, including exams, to attract people. Well, so what does that say about CPAs, right? If they're handing them out at the local corner store, what does that say about CPAs, right? If you went to a university that had 100% acceptance rate and 100% graduation rate, what do you think that degree is worth in the market? Zero, right? So do you want something that's easy to get, that everyone has? Do you want a trophy that everyone gets? I don't. What's the point, right? The value in it is because it is rare. It is hard. There was a drop in interest. I shouldn't say there's a drop in interest. Okay, that's making an assumption that I know why the drop in enrollment happened was because it was a drop in interest. I don't know if it was a drop in interest. There was a drop in enrollment, but that was not particular to CFAI. It was almost every designation, and a lot of colleges and universities saw a drop in enrollment from 2020, 2021, 2022. Saw a lot of that. There's also and I think this is, I'm not going to make a value judgment on it, but I think it's a great opportunity for those who go against the crowd. But there seems to be a growing disillusionment in the new generation coming in, the 18 to 22s coming in now, about formal education, that it's not worth it. So there's a turn away from that kind of thing. That's not going to work out well for them. That's not going to work out well. We live in a cognitively intensive world that's going to become more and more cognitively intensive. So you do need some training in something somewhere, beyond the stupid degrees that don't get you anything. And there's a lot of stupid degrees that you probably just need now to be a barista at Starbucks, because everyone there has a history and a poli-sci degree. So I don't know that I would look at CPA and say, look, here's what CPA is doing. I mean, if they're making it easy for everyone to get a trophy, I don't want to play that game. From what I've seen, the numbers for CFA for the enrollment are coming back up. So I think it was just a natural, pandemic resignation, and they're coming back up. Is passing CFA level 1 enough to get entry level position at a commercial bank? I don't know the answer to that. I'd say no. I mean, if you just say, look, here, I got level 1, is that enough? I'd probably say no. Auditor with one of the big four, CPA, writing CFA level 1, November 23, wanting transition equity research, portfolio management. As someone with my background, well, it should be an easier transition for you. I mean, you're a CPA, you should be able to read financial statements quite well. So as far as equity research, that would be great, right? I mean, it would certainly get your resume in the interview pile. You still got to show up to that room, right? You still got to show up to that room, and you still got to impress me. But I would seem to think that if I'm hiring for equity research and I see that, and I see CPA, that you've got to understand the financial statements. Not only just understand the financial statements, but have a knowledge of the transactions that created the statements that might give you some better insight than somebody who doesn't understand the transactions. For example, when I was looking at utilities, there was this thing called, you can amortize your surplus, the surplus depreciation. I'm like, amortize depreciation. This makes no sense to me. It's the nature of regulated industries and how they calculate the rate that can be charged by starting at the bottom in the income statement and working up. It's like, well, okay, it took a long time for me to get my head around that, and I had to have it explained to me. But if I were an accountant, I would have thought, okay, I get what that is. You'd probably be a little bit ahead of the game on that. After moving out of Canada, don't cry for your favorite. Yeah, no kidding. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in BA. A Bachelor of Science in BA, but had no internships, no related working experience. Kind of distress. How now to do 1650 at retail. Yeah, unless you can get experience, it's kind of hard. I'm looking at the name that you have, and I think it's Vietnamese. So if you're in North America, one of the things that I would point to that can be difficult is if you don't communicate in English very well. That can be difficult. That can be challenging. So it might not be your resume that holds you back, but it might be your language skills that hold you back. I don't know. I'm just sort of trying to give you some other things to think about. If you're not in a primarily English speaking country, then I don't know what it would be. I guess the follow on question I would have is, of all the resumes that you're sending out there, are you getting into any interviews? Are you even getting in the room? If you're not, then there's something with the resume that's blocking your pathway. But if you are getting into the room and not getting anywhere, then it's something particular with you that would have to look at. Cleared FRM recently. Do you think CFA is harder than FRM, which was pretty quantitatively demanding but interesting to learn? FRM is more quantitatively demanding, at least at level 1, I think, than CFA. But if you do, or it used to be, if you complete level 1 and 2 CFA, you've basically done about 75% of level 1. It used to be that way. I don't know if it's still the case for that. I don't know that I would say it's harder. It's different, but I don't know that I would say it's harder or easier. I think the comment section would work if the staff at MM didn't respond to the candidates at all. If the candidates responded to each other, it would be a free way to get a few questions answered. Now we have thought of that. And that was one of the suggestions put up is why not just call it candidate forum and be done with it. And we don't and just make it clear that we don't answer questions. It's just a candidate forum. So we monitored that. We did leave it up and we monitored it. The problem is the answers that are being given, for the most part, are incorrect. So you'll ask a question, somebody will answer it with their best answer, and it's not correct. So do we step in at that point and say, well, hang on now, let's make sure that you get that you don't learn it wrong, because if you learn it wrong and you don't pass, it's going to look bad on us because we have certain pass rates that we want to maintain. We don't want industry pass rates. We're well above industry pass rates, and we plan to stay there. So if you're getting faulty information, that's worse than getting no information. So let's say that you ask a question, you get an answer, and you accept the answer. Well, then you're done. You've closed the book on that. You've moved on, but it's the wrong answer. But if you don't get an answer, you haven't closed the book on it. You'll keep searching for the answer. So we did think of that. And in the end thought, it's going, somebody has to moderate these. You can't just leave it be. Somebody has to moderate these, because what if there's somebody in there calling other people names? You'd have to look at each and every answer, and you'd have to moderate it. So it doesn't really change much. We thought of now. If you look on the left side of our screen on the menu, there is a link right to Reddit. Reddit's a good place to go and ask questions because you get multiple answers, not just one person answering, right? If we left it as a candidate section, it's not dynamic enough to get 10, 15 answers. It's the 10 or 15 answers you get that somebody will answer. Somebody will come along and say, you almost got it because of this. Somebody will say, well, no, it's this and this. And then pretty soon there'll be one answer that gets voted to the top that is the correct answer, because you now are crowdsourcing with a much bigger crowd. And since we've sent everybody to Reddit, most of our candidates are there anyways, which means if you ask a question on Reddit, you are in essence asking our candidates a question, because they're all there, plus other people as well. And quite a few charter holders are there that like to give back and answer questions. So if we're going to have a candidate forum, why not just use the Reddit CFA forum? Done. That's why we have the link right on the site. 25 to 27% through the 25 to 27, not 27.2. I'd check that number through the CFA readings in your videos, and I'm taking the test in February. I feel like I'm behind. Nah, you're not behind. 25 to 27%. No, you're not behind. It feels overwhelming, but you got time. No. Started with your videos and I'm writing May 2024. It took me a month for equity. Well, at level 1, I imagine, first lecture, because I kept forgetting stuff. Not sure if I should reschedule. Don't reschedule. It is natural as you start studying to forget things. It's natural, but don't try to know 100% of it before you move on and then know 100% of the next thing. It's iterative, right? You'll come back to this section again and again with all the sections again and again. Your first pass will get you 50% knowledge, and then as you go through it again, you'll get to 60, 70, 80, and then some sections you'll know really well, some you'll have to review again. No, I wouldn't post. It's way too early. It's May 2024, way too early. Stick with it. When do you think August 2023 level results will be released? First week of October. Within the first 10 days of October, I'm pretty sure, but I think the first week of October. Tips for growing $10,000 account, long short portfolio and strategies to maximize returns. Well, the best tip for growing an account is don't lose money. Make money, but don't lose money. I know that sounds stupid, but it's a matter of structuring your trade such that no one trade can take you down. And that you have a firm limit on how much you'll be down before you just say that's enough. But 10,000 small. 10,000 it's a small account. Did you consider moving to Puerto Rico? No, I did not. Try India. Nope. I'm trying to avoid excessive heat. Why did you pick Costa Rica? Territorial tax system, of which you'll learn in level 3 what a territorial tax system is, and great weather without the humidity. Nice mountains, nice views around you all the time. Safe country, relatively safe. If you remove the crime that's between the gang members in certain areas, if you remove that, it is a much safer country than most cities in the U.S. I know what you mean, but I don't think you're quite correct. There are absolutely rich people who are just rich. The exception, not the rule. The exception. Mom and dad are successful businessmen, while the heir is just a successful jackass. The exception. Yes, there are people like that. It's the exception, not the rule. They are not the majority. It's the exception. And who cares? If I'm successful and I give something to my son, I've already paid tax on that money. I've already paid my fair share on that money. I should be free to do with it what I want. Now, if you think that no, you shouldn't, then will you make a pledge right now to never give your son or daughter a better life than what the lowest income person can do? Never buy them skates, never buy them sporting equipment, don't pay for their piano lessons, don't pay for anything, don't give them anything. You'd never do that. You'd never do that, because the idea is I want to create a better human being than I was. I want to create a more caring, a more thoughtful human being than I was. And just because they have money doesn't mean they're heartless, right? And just so exception, not the rule. I think exception, and I think it's every parent's dream to give their children a better life than what they had. That's the nature of progress, right? And to deny that, to look down on that is to look down on progress itself. So I don't know that I would accept that. Watching an applied series is a wait for level 3. Large amount of content from options top down. What's the best way to remember internalize info? There's no exam, and access doesn't expire. So don't worry about internalizing it. You can always go back to it. But yeah, there is a large amount there. If you go to the portfolio management and construction option or module, there you'll set up a paper account and you'll actually do some trades. The best way to remember the stuff is to actually do it. US GAAP is more rules-based. IFRS is more principle-based. Yep, that's true. Training AI. Yeah, the training AI. Well, you're very close to what we're going to be doing. Yeah, I just lost that. We're almost done here. Let's see. Is it possible to pass CFA while knowing that capitalism is destroying planet Earth? First of all, capitalism is not destroying planet Earth. Capitalism is the way to save planet Earth. Capitalism is not destroying planet Earth. If you didn't have capitalism, okay, let me just take you back. If you didn't have capitalism, forget about most of what you see in the world today. You wouldn't have the Industrial Revolution. You wouldn't have cars. You wouldn't have any of that. The average lifespan of a human being would be about 35 to 40 years, because you would have horses. Horses piss a gallon of urine a day, and they dump 22 pounds of manure every single day, which dries into dust, and the wagon wheels go over that, and it goes in the air. You breathe it in, there's your TB. And that was the problem especially in bigger cities like New York City before vehicles, is the sickness, is just the level of sickness. The auto industry lengthened the life of human beings by eliminating that, lengthened the life. Capitalism is not destroying this planet. Capitalism has some side effects, but everything has side effects. So what you have to find, there is no perfect system. What you have to find is the least imperfect system. And capitalism with democracy is the least imperfect system run by imperfect human beings, but not so imperfect that they can't learn and progress. What is capitalism giving us today? Capitalism is giving us solar, it's giving us wind, is giving us tidal energy, is giving us hydro. Is giving us carbon capture and sequestration, is giving us ways to reclaim water we thought we could never reclaim ever again. Capitalism is the best way to solve a problem. If there's a problem, capitalism will solve that problem. A free market will solve all the problems. If it's a problem, it will be solved. Will you have people who say, oh, it's just not true? Yeah, you will. But you have people who say that for anything and everything. You actually have people, I'm not making this up, you actually have people who believe the earth is flat. Who believe the earth is freaking flat. Okay, so you're going to have people who believe all sorts of crazy things. There are people who believe there are witches. There are people who believe they are witches. There are people who believe they're magic. There are people who believe they can read your mind. Look, there's all sorts of crazy shit out there, okay? So are you going to have people who say, oh, climate change isn't real? Yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. But that doesn't mean that capitalism is destroying the planet. And capitalism did not destroy the planet. You may think, oh, but it produced all of this other stuff. You have to have a counterfactual. What would you have if you didn't have capitalism? Right? What would you have if you didn't have any of that? What would you have if you had no industrial revolution, you had no factories, you had no smelting of iron? You'd still need energy. Think of all the trees that would be burned down in fires. Think of the inefficiency of that, because that is the most inefficient form of energy is burning wood. Think of all the horses in the world. Think of all the urine and all the feces that would be spread all around everywhere. Think of all the babies that would die. Think of all the people who would die at TB at 25, 30, 35. It would be a terrible life. It would be, we would think, oh, they got to 42, nice ripe age. Here we have average ages that are increasing every year. Lifespans are increasing. I think sometimes we don't look at our successes enough. The number of people that have been raised out of poverty with capitalism. Have a look at countries like India and China, and China before the World Trade Organization. The average income in a country like that, and look at what capitalism has done in terms of being able to bring so many people out of poverty and creating so much wealth. The solar panel industry, China. China is leading in terms of battery production and the move to EVs. And I think in other form, I'm not sure what other form of clean energy that they seem to be taking the lead in. But capitalism has its byproducts, and capitalism will solve it. If we throw out capitalism at this point and move to socialism, we are dooming ourselves to a miserable end, because socialism cannot solve the environmental problems, and socialism will kill capital. And contrary to what people think, okay, with all this labor movement and what President Biden likes to say, labor built this country. Labor did not build this country. Okay, capital built this country. Labor came along for the ride. Labor did not build this country. If labor built this country, China would have been the richest country on this planet centuries ago. India would be the richest country on this planet decades ago, because they got a whole bunch of labor. They got a whole bunch of it. So if labor is the necessary ingredient to build a great country, the US, with 5% of the world population, would have been in the bottom 50% of wealth in terms of ranking countries. What makes the US the biggest, baddest economy on the planet is because they have the most capital. Period. Capital built this country. Capital built all the advanced economies because of capitalism, because it solves problems, and it will solve these problems. Capitalism is not killing us. Capitalism is the savior of whatever problem we have. Capitalism will have a solution for it. Look at all the diseases capitalism has been able to solve, right? Over the last 100 years. Look at the technology that we have in our hands today, that socialism could never have created. So I got to push back on that capitalism destroying the planet. Capitalism is capital. If more countries embrace democracy and capitalism, we'd move to the least imperfect world we could ever imagine. There's my pushback on that. Let's see. Okay. I have my exam on the 14th of November. This will be my second attempt, working full-time job, current strategies, watching your videos, working on the OCQs, and then QB questions, thoughts. Don't forget the examples that are within the reading. CFA does say that a lot of the questions on the exam are modeled on the structure of those questions, not the same questions, but the same structure of the question is used for exam questions. So don't forget those. Those are good ones. Any opinions on CFA versus CPM? Not really. I don't know enough about the CPM to have an opinion on that. Sitting level 1 November, beginning my prep August, quants, econ, FSA. Targets to finish curriculum next 25 days, and I'll leave 1 month for practices. Plan feasible. You're leaving out the most important element, which is you. I know nothing about you, so you're telling me what you've done and what you plan to do, but I know nothing about you. Sure, it's feasible. Any plan is feasible when mixed with the right person with the right abilities and the right motivation. Anything is feasible. I just don't know enough about the rest of the stuff to be able to answer that. But if you've gone through quants, economic, and FSA, if you started in August and you're through them now, not lightly through them, but through them, where if I asked you questions about them, you could answer them, then you're on your way. I'm about to start level 1, but I was very much more interested in the applied course. If I bought level 1 plus applied together, will applied also expire on the test date? No, applied does not expire. It doesn't expire, so you're good. Current thoughts on CFA versus MBA in 2023 and going forward? Of course, both couldn't hurt, but if you had to pick one, depends on the school. Depends on the school. Okay, so pedigree matters. If your MBA is from a low-ranked university, it's probably not going to matter very much in the market. So if it's from a high-ranked university, that may be enough to get you some intern positions at some good places, and then eventually get you a job. And experience is the key. Depends on what the MBA is focused on. Depends on the courses that you take. So there are generalist MBAs, there are specialist MBAs, there are high pedigree MBAs, there are low pedigree MBAs. So it really depends on where you get it from. And even though we have this representative, inclusive world we're trying to create, pedigree matters. Pedigree still matters. CPA that went into investment banking, now doing corporate finance at a utilities company. CFA and CPA solid combo? Yes, I do think they are. How stringent is CFA work requirement? I'm not too up on that. Currently work mid-sized bank and regulatory capital space. Advise senior leadership on share buyback, certain debt issuance. That sounds like corporate finance. I don't know. You can always get a ruling on that. Just contact CFAI directly. What seminar videos include which come with the full access pack? Well, whenever we do any seminar video, you would get it. I don't know which ones are there. There's a bunch of them. I can't remember them off the top of my head. Talking about investment banking, M&A makes me feel slightly bad about leaving. Pay was great, but hours were horrendous. That is the general consensus. Pay is good, hours are bad. No life. Any Q&A sessions for level 2 in the near future? Sunday. This Sunday is what I'm doing now for level 1 will be level 2. How do we get doubts resolved for CFA level 1 2020 if we take your course? In the, I think, 8 weeks before the exam, we have a whole bunch of office hours, all at different times for different topics. And you just show up on the site and you type in your question, and somebody on the other side has their black screen, and you see the black screen on the screen, and we just draw out the answer on the screen, and there you go. And there's lots of office hour sessions. Numerous Canadian banks are allowing for negative amortization on mortgages. I don't know if they're allowing for the negative amortization or just saying, I guess we'll just let it slide. But I don't know that they're allowing for it in the sense that, hey, yeah, you can do this. It's sort of like, I think they'd rather not have it, but being that it's going on, they're probably saying, okay, but we really got to fix this at some point. This is not a form of stimulus. Is it a form of stimulus? I don't know that I would say that it's a form of stimulus, because you're still making the same mortgage payment. It's all interest. It's not enough to even cover the interest, which means your principal is growing each month, but you're making those full payments. A form of stimulus would be that your payments are dropping and you're not even covering interest, but you still have more money to go spend somewhere else. I don't see that this is putting any extra money into the economy. Keeping the residents in Canada as a backup? No. House goes up for sale next month. Thoughts on resurgence of IPO this past week? I don't know that I have any thoughts on it other than you can only keep them off the market for so long before VCs and PE, private equity, says, well, we got to monetize this at some point because we're getting near, depending on what vintage their fund was, they're going to have to liquidate their holdings and return money to shareholders. They have 10, 12 year partnership. So I don't know that I'm ready to say that there's a resurgence. Did you work in the investment management industry post-college? No, I did not. I've been thinking of giving level 1. I've been given a few mocks, done well. I've never gone through. It sounds like a statement. I've gone through the material. Well, now's your chance. All right. Thoughts on the Sug Handy financial analyst? I don't know what that is. Thoughts on Canadian PM accusing India of involvement in murder? Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, I think that's a hill that I certainly wouldn't want to die on. What skills do I require to get into institutional trading? Can I leverage the skills I learned from CFA? Well, yeah, from CFA, yeah. When you say institutional trading, I don't know what you mean by institutional trading. You mean being the trader that executes the trade? Or do you mean being the one that comes up with the ideas for trades? So I'm not sure what you mean by getting into institutional trading. What your IQ has given you actually recognize the difference in intelligence in Canada and how it affects outcomes. I range depending on the test that I take. And I haven't done one for 20 years. Anywhere between it's kind of tight, 137 to 143 in a really tight range. Depends on, it depends on the test. They're not all the same, but it clusters very tightly. Recommendations on the study sequence for your applied series? No, I don't think that I don't think that there's any recommended sequence there. At least there's nothing that you need to know before knowing something else. All the modules are meant to sort of be standalone. Thoughts on Canadian government subsidizing up to 45% of initial cost of green energy? Well, first of all, Canadian governments don't subsidize anything, okay? And governments don't spend money. Taxpayers subsidize, and governments spend taxpayer money. So it's taxpayer spending and it's taxpayer subsidizing. When we say it the right way, then we avoid saying things like the government should really pay for my father's long-term care. Sounds reasonable, right? The government should pay for my father's long-term care. Now say it the right way. The taxpayer should pay for my father's long-term care. Doesn't sound right, does it? All my neighbors should get together and pay for my father's long-term care. Like, that doesn't sound right, does it? It's your father. You pay for your father's long-term care. So when we say the government, it ends up being this invisible entity that simply just comes up with money. No, we must say it right. Taxpayer spending, taxpayer subsidized. Thoughts on the Canadian taxpayer subsidizing up to 45% of the initial cost of green energy? More generally, what do you think of this green wave influence? I don't know what to think about that one. I mean, I don't know. Usually, subsidies occur or intervention like this occurs when you have market failure. Market failure is a condition where an outcome would be desirable, but no one entity is interested in doing it because they can't capture the gains from doing it, like an army, for example. So armies, military is government controlled simply because the private market couldn't get it done. Same with building highways and building roads. There's a certain market failure there. This is why you have government step in. Do we have market failure in green energy? So that's the question. If we're really questioning whether or not there should be subsidies on this, we have to ask, is this a question of market failure? So we have incentives to buy electric vehicles. There is some reductions in the cost, some taxpayer money that we get when we buy an electric vehicle. Would electric vehicles still sell if you didn't have that? I think yes, because I don't think that you would have market failure in that particular circumstance. You would have the auto industry saying, well, we can't make $70,000 EVs. We're going to have to find a way to lower the cost of these EVs. And they would find a way to produce an EV that people could afford. There'd be more innovation around cost reduction. But when you have, government stepping in saying, oh, we'll pay for this, we'll pay for that. The first question is, well, hang on a second. Absent you paying for that, would we have market failure? Or would we just have a slower market? Right? So I don't know that there is market failure in green energy. So, I'm sort of on the fence on that one. Yeah. I don't support it, but I'm not against it. Put it that way. It's like, I guess I could go either way on that one. Capital is giving us easy access to capital. My granddad was an auditor who lived below minimum wage almost all his life in pre-independence India. I'm a modest trader, but I make 15 times median. Well, yeah. Do you think being a psychic would give me an edge at technical analysis? Yeah. Currently using your material to study level 1. Just want to say thank you. Okay. Capitalism saves the planet. This should go on a t-shirt. Yeah. Anyone trading silver right now. And I think we're near the end. November. Just finished FSA Quant, CI, and I'm in the middle of FI for November. Yeah, that's tight for November. Fate look. Yeah, that's tight for November. I would say tight. Let's see. My learning style is by watching videos rather than reading through books. Will full access to your course be enough to pass level 1, 2, 3? I can't answer that because I know nothing about you. I will say this. I don't leave anything out. I cover everything. So I don't just do the highlights. Here's this reading really looked at this formula. Here you go. The rest you can read. I know there are 2 other providers that tend to do that. Their videos tend to hit the highlights and then you read the small stuff yourself. I cover everything. So try this. Watch a couple of videos and do the readings and ask yourself after you do that, are the videos enough now for you? You must decide that on your own, right? But you can try it that way. Do you know how a retail investor can purchase mortgage-backed securities? Call your broker. But you can purchase MBS. You may not be able to do it through your trading platform, but every trading platform has a broker line. You should be able to call the broker and say, this is what I want. It's a dealer market, so you're going to need access to a dealer, which your broker should be able to get that done for you. You might pay a higher transaction cost, maybe around $35, but you should be able to get that done. I have 4 subs left for November 23, like Alt. Alt is easy. INV. Inv. All alternative investment, ethics, quants, and economics. Lean into it. I mean, if you've only got those 4, alt is fairly straightforward. Quants, you're 70% done. It's not that challenging, really, if you've seen it before. Economics, you have fundamental knowledge there. Just lean into it. You got time before you have to decide. What are your thoughts on the retail investor community using technical analysis without formalized training? It seems like a lot of amateur traders use a confirmation bias for trades. Yeah, well, yeah. What are my thoughts on people doing anything without experience? I'm going to open a restaurant. Never did it before, but I know how to eat food. Well, it's not going to work out usually. So, how do you make yourself motivated to do all things you're supposed to do and stay on top of things? With little steps. Get addicted to small steps, and it'll all just work out for you. What do you think of that ugly TLT trade? Jesus, was it ugly today? Was it freaking ugly today? But I bought more, not TLT. I bought more of the equivalent bond, the 25-year. 74.9, 74.8. I was getting filled at 74, which is pretty good. 4.72, 4.73% yield on the 25-year, the 3% coupon. But I'm in a unique position right now. I'm hoping for 2 things to happen: the Canadian dollar to strengthen dramatically, so when I convert my Canadian to US, I get more US because I have to, and for bonds to have a major sell-off so that I can put all those US dollars in long bonds and load up on duration, because those rates can only get so high before they actually break something. And I think it's a lot of overreaction at this point. But since I want to be there anyways, I'll take it. The nice thing about the TLT trade is this, is I can sell my TLT at a loss and have a tax loss this year, and then move into the 25-year US Treasury, which is comparable because the average duration in TLT is about 17.6, which makes it very equivalent to the 25-year Treasury. So if I buy a 25-year Treasury, I get the same duration, but I get about 110, 120 basis points more on yield because of TLT's management fees. So I actually do better. And because they are different securities, they're not the same. They're different securities. That loss on TLT is a loss for tax purposes, even though I have a similar but different, a similar acting security with a better yield. I can't lose on this one because I have to move my money out of the country. I'm moving it out in US dollars in US treasuries, and I have the luxury of time to sit and wait with a 4.7% yield. I got the luxury of time to sit and wait. That duration will pay off. So I'm not too concerned, but it was ugly today. Let's see, best methods to continually review the previous readings while getting through the rest of the curriculum. Here's the thing about review, and there's lots of research on this that shows that you really don't need a lot of review. Is memory decays like this. But if you stick your review in, what happens is your memory does this. You can keep, and it only takes maybe 5-10 minutes of review to keep it from decaying in your mind. So it doesn't take a lot of review. So I don't know that. Listen, you got the PDFs we give you of the screens. All you have to do is just you just read through it. Take 2 hours on a Sunday and say, okay, I'm going to review everything I've done. Maybe every third Sunday you do that. Is just your review day. That's all you need to do. What type of account to open for a child? Are you gifting to the child? If you're gifting to the child, I would say just a savings account, someplace that you can hold bonds in, and I would be very conservative in what you're doing there. Thoughts on selling puts on SPY for long-term investment strategy rather than, well, I mean, if you think SPY is something you want to be in, you're certainly going to have heightened implied volatility on it now, which means you're going to get nice big premiums. Let's see, thoughts on dividend growth investing. Well, dividend growth makes a lot of sense because you're buying a stock for a price today, let's say $20, that has a 4% yield, and if the dividend keeps growing, the stock should price itself for a 4% yield. The price should continue to move up as the dividend moves up. Some of the best dividend growers are utilities. So if you're going to have dividend growth investing, you're going to have utilities in there somewhere. And especially with a transition to green, those are all regulatory assets. And utilities make money based on the level of the regulatory assets. So if they're having to convert to green, and their assets are growing at 6-7% a year, you can look at your dividend to grow 6-7% a year as well. If you're going to be doing dividend growth investing, I don't know how you can avoid utilities. Let's see, work on one of the big four companies, valuation specialist on level 3 investments. This specialist arm of the company was started recently. What do you think of the future of the PE and VC funds? Well, I think private investments are going to become bigger. I think as markets become more crowded, they become more efficient. It's harder to generate alpha. Your easiest alpha to generate is your illiquidity premium. And I think that you can probably get that done in private assets more than you can in public assets. So I don't see them going away at all. So when I think about the future, I think they'll be okay. What do you think of the bank loan ETF? I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I don't know what it's priced at. I don't know. I think from what I've heard about bank loans is they're priced richly, much like credit spreads right now are priced richly, meaning that they're not the spreads aren't wide enough on them. But I haven't really looked into the ETF enough to have an opinion. Do you recommend doing practice questions every day or together at the end? I don't know about every day. I don't know about every day. Fed meeting really helped out your short ES position. Yeah, I had sold some calls on ES at 46 and 46.50. Closed them today because the premiums were low enough. I closed them today, which was nice. I wasn't aggressive enough when I sold the calls. I should have sold a hell of a lot more, but I didn't because I got burnt on my short position at the beginning of the year. Took my hits on that one. So this was nice. It helped recover some of the hit that I took. But I should have been more aggressive. It's funny. Every time I'm not aggressive enough, I should have been more aggressive. Every time I'm really aggressive, I should not have been so aggressive. I can't get that right. My picks are fairly good. My timing is just terrible. What about buying puts on XP access? Did you confirm your move to the U.S.? Moving to Costa Rica, not U.S. Would love to get your thoughts on rental property investments. My wife loves the idea, but I hate the feeling being cash poor. Yeah, it's listen, think about it this way. What about being income poor? Let's say that you don't sell your labor because you don't want to be leisure poor. well, then you'll be income poor, right? That's why we sell our labor. We give certain amount of time to a company and they give us a paycheck. That's the deal. Well, your money is the same way, right? Think about saying, well, I'm not going to work because I don't want to be leisure time poor. I'm not going to put my money in anything because I don't want to be cash poor. Well, now your money's not working for you, much as you're not working for yourself. If you say, well, I want all my leisure time, then you have no income. If you say, well, I want my money in one big pile that I can see so I'm not cash poor, well, then your money's not working for you. It's the same as you not working, your money's not working. So why have idle money? It's like having unemployed people in the house just eating your food. Put your money to work. The nice thing about rental properties is the tenant really pays your mortgage for you. So your downstroke is your equity. And over time, your tenant builds equity for you in an asset that if you have the right tenants, you should have an appreciating asset with appreciating rents, which means you have a dividend growth stock that you own 100% of the shares of. But capital sitting idle makes no sense. However, I will say this. With cap rates where they are, and with investment grade paying over 6%, kind of hard to throw my money into an apartment building that needs a paint job, that needs a roof, that needs maintenance, that needs the lawn taken care of, that needs snow shoveling, that needs insurance, that needs this and that, when I could just buy an IG bond and be done with it. Like I could just buy a utility bond, 6% yield, and be done with it, right? Because what am I going to get? What's my NOI, my cap rate? Well, the NOI over property value. Well, your cap rate going to be on an apartment building 5.5%, 6%. So you do have, I think maybe you do have a point there, is that why work for 6% when you could passively get 6%, right? However, if you do this right, you get an apartment building, you get a mortgage on that apartment building, you have your rental income. By the time you deduct your interest and your depreciation, you have a loss. That's the beautiful thing, right? Is the loss that you have that now shields some of your other income, so that you can actually have a tax gain off of this. And for the first 5 years or so, usually you can run your property at a loss. That's the tax shield idea behind the property. Whereas with the investment grade bond, you're going to have a tax bill right away. But with the property, you could probably build equity without ever paying a penny in tax for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and smuggle all of that into the capital gain when you sell the property later on. Now, when you sell the property and you take that money and you buy another property within a certain period of time, there's no tax on that capital gain. You can carry that interest forever until you finally just stop, right? So there is something in real estate in terms of getting tax-free income for the next 5 or 6 years, or at least a tax-free building of your equity for the next 5 or 6 years. Thoughts on real estate in Canada? Especially office space in Calgary. Yeah, I would not touch office space anywhere. Apartments, yes. Right now, Canada is growing its population mostly through immigration. And for every 5 people that enter the country, Canada adds 1 apartment unit. Think about that now. 5 people in, 1 apartment unit. 5 people for every 1. If you look at the Canadian apartment REITs, they're just not giving back very much. Only because what are they sitting at? 98, 99% occupancy and strong rent growth year over year. So what do I think about it? Is that the time? 1:02? Oh my God, it's 1:00 in the morning. I better finish up here soon. Yeah. So apartment REITs, yes. Any other type of real estate, I'm not a big fan of. I'm going to answer a couple more and then we'll be done. Thank you for the answer. He mentioned US MBS is trading higher than US government bonds. US MBS is trading higher than US government bonds. Yes. Higher than the 10-year, about 200 basis points higher than the 10-year. 250, somewhere around there. Due to the last 3-year U.S. real estate housing price increase and large portion of fixed mortgage in the U.S., the default risk should be relatively low. I agree with you there. Not only that, if you're buying agency MBS, you have an implied government guarantee. I'm going to end it here. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I didn't see the time, 1:03. So it's been where were we? 3 hours, 4 minutes. That was a good session. I have another one on Sunday. I think 2 p.m. for level 2. So we'll end it here, and then maybe I'll see some of you on Sunday. Yeah. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. I think we're good on that. I'm going to count down from 5, and I have a big red button that says end stream. I'm going to end the stream in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.